I tap my phone with the hope that I'll somehow magically gain a signal, but the bars on my phone remain empty. Letting out a frustrated sigh, I lean my head back against the headrest and stare out at the empty crossroads. Not a car in sight. What was I thinking, taking that shortcut? I knew better. But no, I just had to be clever, didn't I? Trying to shave a few minutes off the drive. Well, look where that got me. Drumming my fingers on the steering wheel, I mutter to myself, lost in the mountains, with no cell service, fuel running dangerously low. Brilliant move, Maya, just brilliant. I really need to stop talking to myself. It's a habit I picked up as a teenager, back when Mom would pass out drunk on the couch, hugging her whiskey bottle instead of me. I'd chat away to myself, just to hear a voice in that quiet house. Pathetic, right? But it was better than the alternative, her screaming at me until she finally drank herself into a stupor. Dad was never around to buffer her nastiness. His work trips got longer and longer until one day, surprise, surprise, he just didn't come home. He ran off to play happy families with his other wife and kids on the opposite coast. Took 2 years for the divorce to go through. 2 long years of living alone with her. I shake my head and try to focus on the positives. But hey, it wasn't all bad, I guess. Her neglect gave me plenty of time to study. I managed to get myself a scholarship to the University of Pittsburgh, and when the grandma I never knew I had passed on, I inherited enough to buy a little house near campus. I finally had a place of my own, although it came with a hefty mortgage. I worked my butt off at my first marketing job to pay it off. 3 years at Innovate Marketing Solutions. I thought I'd stay in that house forever, until this latest job offer came along. It was too good to refuse, even if it meant selling the place and moving cross-country. In the end, it was an easy choice. That house was the only thing tying me to Pittsburgh. At least it came through for me one last time, and gave me enough cash from the sale to relocate without going broke. Looking out the window, I inhale the crisp mountain air and take in the stunning scenery. I'm surrounded by majestic snow-capped peaks that pierce the vivid blue sky. Tall, proud evergreens stand sentinel on the mountainside, their needles whispering secrets in the breeze. A carpet of wildflowers in vibrant yellows, purples, and whites blanket the alpine meadows. The air is so fresh and clean it almost hurts my city girl lungs. I breathe in deeply, savoring the sweet scent of pine and the slight tang of snow from the highest elevations. A bubbling stream winds through the valley, its crystal clear waters tumbling over mossy boulders. Birds call to each other in melodic tones, and a hawk circles lazily overhead, riding the thermals by the look of him. It's like something out of a fairy tale or a painting. Definitely not the concrete jungle I'm used to. Taking another appreciative look at the stunning views, I have to admit, there are worse places to be stranded. If my phone wasn't dead as a doornail, I'd snap a few pictures. But the tranquil beauty isn't doing much to calm the dread churning in my stomach. I'm still lost. Still alone. No one knows I'm out here. I was stupid to try taking a shortcut through the mountains without telling anyone my route, without even glancing at a map. Go me. The stones in my stomach stop rolling and a strange pull tugs at my gut. I don't often give in to gut feelings, but this one is so strong and so strange that it cements my decision. With a slight frown, I chew on my lower lip, pondering the weird sensation that grips me. I make a right turn at the T intersection onto the road that winds higher up into the mountain. The tires crunch over the gravel as I leave the main highway behind. Tall evergreens loom on either side, their branches forming a canopy overhead that blots out the sky. The encroaching trees press in closer, their shadows deepening as the road narrows. A deep ravine yawns on my right, the sheer drop making my stomach lurch. On my left, jagged rocks rise far above the car in steep, unforgiving cliffs. The trees are thick here, their trunks gnarled and twisted into menacing shapes, creating a claustrophobic tunnel over the road. Hours pass, and I'm more than worried. At this stage, if I could turn my car around and backtrack the 2 hours I've just driven into this increasingly ominous wilderness, I would. But the road is too narrow, the turns too sharp. I'm forced to keep driving forward into the unknown. My heart pounds, the shadows seeming to shift and dance in the corners of my vision. The hairs prickle on the back of my neck as instinct screams that something isn't right here. This is crazy, Maya. I'm really uneasy, fighting the urge to just stop the car and get out, to escape the unsettling tightness gripping my chest. But then I come across a sign welcoming me into a town called Willowbrook. It's strange because I can't recall seeing any town of this name when I planned out my trip, poring over maps and brochures. The sign looks sparkling and new, the red paint shining in the sunshine. The word Willowbrook is written in curling white brush script that beckons me onward. As I pass under the sign, a strange electrical charge runs over my body, raising the fine hairs on my arms in a prickling wave. What the hell was that? I mutter aloud, shooting a wary glance in the rearview mirror at the innocuous-looking sign receding behind me. My skin still tingles with an energy I can't explain. Get a grip. It was just static electricity buildup or something, nothing weird about it. Maybe I'm more tired than I thought from being cooped up in the car all day. Maybe my nerves are just frayed from the stress of the move and everything that led up to it. This long, winding road through the dense forest is just messing with my head, playing tricks on my eyes and senses. That has to be it. I'm just projecting all my anxieties onto my surroundings, letting my imagination run away with me as usual. Nodding to myself, I force my white-knuckled hands to loosen their death grip on the steering wheel, flexing my fingers. I need to stop psyching myself out over nothing. I'll roll into this Willowbrook, wherever the hell it is, refuel, grab a snack and a coffee to perk myself up, and be back on the highway in no time. Easy peasy. I drive a little further down the road, the knot of unease growing tighter in my gut as I wonder exactly where this mysterious town called Willowbrook could possibly be. Then, as abruptly as the suffocating trees closed in, they fall away and I coast into town, down the main street, the sudden normalcy of it all giving me metaphorical whiplash. Well, I'll be damned, I murmur, taking in the neat, quaint buildings lining the road ahead. They've been lovingly maintained, their window boxes overflowing with bright flowers lending a rustic charm to the place. Shops of all kinds beckon, their windows displaying an assortment of wares. Antiques, art, handmade crafts. A few cars pass me, heading the other way, their occupants glancing my way with obvious curiosity. Of course, my beat-up old sedan loaded down with boxes and my rooftop cargo carrier stands out like a sore thumb here. People meander along the sidewalks too, some pausing to stare as I coast past. So much for blending in. I hunch my shoulders self-consciously, trying to shrink down in my seat. My growling stomach distracts me from the prying eyes. I realize it's been hours since that pitiful granola bar I scarfed down as a sad excuse for breakfast this morning. As if summoned by the thought, I come upon a quaint 1950s-styled diner, simply marked Sally's Diner in bright neon. Fries and a burger are definitely needed. My fuel tank is perilously close to empty anyway, I reason as I pull up and park in front of the well-tended building. Potted plants and an honest-to-God window box overflowing with red geraniums line the entrance. Through the large front windows, I can see people inside relaxing in red vinyl booths and tucking into hearty meals. Definitely looks like a good place to refuel while I'm at it. The little bell over the door jingles cheerfully as I head inside, announcing my arrival. All conversation grinds to a halt, head swiveling to openly stare at me. I freeze in the entryway, ears burning, and wonder if I've somehow sprouted another head. Well, good grief, everyone. Quit your gawking and mind your own business, a friendly voice scolds, making me jump. A woman with shoulder-length brown hair streaked with gray emerges from the back, ushering me inside with a warm smile. Welcome, welcome. Take a seat anywhere you like, honey. I'm utterly self-conscious as she directs me to an empty booth along the window. The vinyl creaks as I slide into the worn seat. trying not to squirm under the weight of so many staring eyes. "Name's Sally, and you found yourself in our little town of Willowbrook, if you didn't already see the sign," Sally informs me as she places a laminated menu in front of me. "If you need anything at all, just give me a holler." Her smile is genuine, crinkling the corners of her eyes. Thanks," I murmur. I don't know this overly friendly woman, and just in general these days, I much prefer my own company. Still, I can't shake the nagging feeling that there's something more to her welcoming act, some deeper meaning or undercurrent that I'm not picking up on. But then, I'm probably reading too much into someone merely being friendly. I shake my head. "Get a grip, Maya. You've been too isolated for too long. You're not used to simple friendliness anymore." I steel myself, firmly pushing aside my unease. It doesn't matter what I think. I'll be on my way soon enough and out of this little town, never to be seen or heard from again. The burger really is thick and juicy when it arrives, the fries piping hot and crispy. I devour the meal hungrily, barely even tasting it in my haste to refuel and get back on the road. When I'm done, I head to the front counter to pay for my lunch. "Where's the gas station here?" I ask Sally as I dig through my purse for my wallet. The purse's contents spill out across the countertop in my haste. Sally smiles at me. "Well, honey, the gas station is the same as the local mechanic's garage. It's owned by a fella named Jake. Real nice guy. You'll like him." Her words barely register as sheer panic sets in. I can't find my wallet, no matter how frantically I paw through loose tampons, crumpled receipts, and lipsticks. Dread coils tight in my belly as the memory comes crashing back in vivid detail. The busy travel station on the outskirts of Jacksonville, where I last filled my tank, somewhere back on the highway hours ago now. The jostle of the lunchtime crowd, somebody bumping hard into me from behind, only to turn with an apologetic smile and effusive apologies as they hustled away. At the time, I brushed it off as just another inconsiderate idiot in a hurry, too absorbed in my own thoughts to give it a second thought. But now, with horrible clarity, I realized that bumbling fool had been anything but. He'd deftly slipped my wallet from my purse while diverting my attention with a fake jostle. I can't believe I fell for the oldest setup in the book. The reality is that my hard-earned cash, credit and debit cards, and ID are all gone in a careless blink. I can't find my wallet," I manage numbly, my face flushing hot with mingled shame and anger at my own obliviousness. How could I have been so stupid? Sally's lined face falls into concerned lines as I raise my head to meet her gaze, my cheeks burning. "No need to worry about settling up right this minute if you can't." I have my phone, but a quick check at the reception tells me what I already knew. It's still as good as dead. I can't even use my bank app to transfer funds. "No, you don't understand." The words come out choked, my throat tight with tears of frustration rapidly welling. "Someone stole my wallet at the last place I stopped for gas. I don't have any way to pay you." The full weight of my predicament sinks in like a lead weight, crushing the air from my lungs. No cash, no cards, not even any ID left. I'm utterly defenseless out here in the middle of nowhere. Humiliated tears prick the corners of my eyes despite my efforts to blink them back. I can't break down here, not in front of this stranger and her gaping diner crowd. I'm better than this, stronger than this crushing sense of violation and despair clawing at my throat. Sally's weathered hand reaches across the counter to pat my own reassuringly. "Now, don't you worry one bit about that. We'll get it all sorted," she soothes, her warm hazel eyes shining with sincere empathy. I shake my head helplessly, but I also have no phone to call the bank and cancel my cards or report the theft, I say miserably. Every protective barrier has been stripped away with that one stupid mistake. I'm utterly vulnerable out here on my own with no resources whatsoever. Even if your phone wasn't dead, there's no reception here either. The best thing you can do is report it to Sheriff Mitch down at the station. He'll not only help you get everything squared away, but he can let the other gas stations know about the theft too. Sally's smile doesn't falter. her tone so brightly reassuring it's almost painful, and why is she not more worried? I nod dumbly, my scrambled thoughts still struggling to catch up. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and as soon as I can, I'll make sure to pay you back for the meal. Take your time, hun. Things have a way of turning out fine around here. Sally waves me off with a kind smile. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I get back in my car, letting the driver's side door creak shut behind me. I have maybe a quarter tank of gas left, hopefully just enough to make it to the sheriff's station she mentioned. But after that, how am I going to afford to pay for the rest of my travels, let alone get new IDs to set up my new life?
I close the hood of the old red Chevy I've just finished the service on and call Joe, the owner, to arrange a time for him to pick it up. Joe is an old shifter who lives on the outskirts of Willowbrook, and he's always seemed ancient to me, even when I was just a pup getting under the feet of the previous garage owner, John Burke.
I guess it was my constant pestering and curiosity about how to fix cars that led John to take pity on me and teach me the ropes all those years ago. I owe him a debt I can never repay. There's not much I don't know about how to diagnose and repair now, thanks to his patient mentorship. I owe him everything, especially as when he finally retired, he passed the garage on to me.
He still comes around every now and then to tinker and shoot the breeze, more social calls than anything. I know he's testing me too, keeping me on my toes, just like when I was his overeager apprentice. When he handed over the keys and made me the new owner, John told me he felt better about retiring, knowing his life's work was going to someone who could keep Willowbrook running smoothly. As the town's only mechanic, some days I really do feel that weight on my shoulders. All manner of beat-up trucks, ancient sedans, and rusted junkers find their way into my shop. I love the challenge of coaxing them back to life, letting me learn and grow with every engine teardown. It's deeply satisfying work that makes me feel like I'm contributing, helping people in a tangible way. My work life is fulfilling, no complaints there. If I could just find my mate, my life would be complete. The thought triggers a pang of loneliness, a bad feeling settling heavy in my gut. I know there will come a time, sooner rather than later, when I may be forced to leave Willowbrook behind. Only 2 new mates, one each for our Sheriff Alpha and his Beta, have been found here in over 20 years. I'm facing the very real possibility of going feral and losing myself completely if I don't find my mate soon. So many male shifters my age have already abandoned our pack, venturing out to bigger cities and other packlands in a desperate search for their other half. The drive to mate and continue our dwindling species is almost overpowering. Without a mate's balancing presence, my wolf side will eventually take over, and I'll descend into that feral, mindless state to which others have succumbed, an empty, ravaging existence with no higher thought or purpose. My wolf whines deep within my thoughts, his distress seeping into my consciousness. He's a part of me, yet separate. We were born together as 2 souls sharing this one body that can shift forms. He senses my human worries and fears just as I'm intimately aware of his instincts and needs. He doesn't want to lose himself to that wild, unthinking state any more than my rational human mind does. Just as I need his predatory power to survive, he needs my humanity as an anchor, the only tether keeping him in check and bringing him back from the edge when we're tempted to give in to our basest urges. Without that precarious balance, that yin and yang, we'll both be eventually lost to oblivion. 2 halves of a whole spinning, inevitably out of control. Neither of us wants to leave the sanctuary of Willowbrook. This is our home, our safe haven where we can exist freely without constantly looking over our shoulders for the threat of hunters or rival packs seeking to encroach on our territory. We're protected here in the heart of the Longtooth Packlands, the ancient wards and magic shielding us from outsiders. If I'm forced to venture beyond these boundaries in search of my mate, I'll have to leave that security behind. But it might very well come to that crossroads soon enough. I have to make a decision. Do I stay and face slowly going feral as time marches on, or do I take my chances out in the wider world, leaving behind everything and everyone I've ever known? The probability of finding my mate here is as low as it would be anywhere else at this point, but I have to try, don't I? At least here I'd have the support of my pack family for as long as I can hold on to my humanity. My wolf has been unsettled all day, a ceaseless prowling presence pacing and growling restlessly in the back of our shared consciousness. I can't help the flicker of fear that licks at my resolve. Is he starting to succumb at last, to slowly slip into that abyss of mindless elemental savagery that will eventually consume and devour us both, utterly? Easy there, not yet, my friend. We have to hold on, keep fighting this as long as we can. Please, not yet. Not until I've at least had a chance to find her. My gaze falls on the mangled car wreck shoved against the far wall, and a little spike of hopeful determination pierces the anxiety clouding my thoughts. I'm determined to fix Arya's car back to pristine condition. I push off from my workbench and cross to run my hand over the crumpled chassis. This should give us a decent project to focus on for a while. I murmur out loud, feeling my wolf's attention finally shift from his inner torment as I bend to examine the damage more closely. Then, we'll go for a nice hard run in the woods surrounding the town. A low rumble vibrates the back of my skull, my wolf's interest finally piqued by the prospect of physical exertion and the chance to stretch our legs out on four paws for a while. The thought of fresh air and freedom helps calm the rising swell of restlessness clawing at me. A flicker of fondness ignites alongside the ember of hope rapidly sparkling within me as I think of Arya. Her unexpected arrival in our isolated town has breathed new life into the pack, giving us all a tantalizing hint of how things could be if more outsiders slowly trickled in. Zane has come alive since her arrival, a smile ready on his lips. The same can be said for our alpha, Mitch. Both males have given us all hope that our mates will find us. The prospect is enough to momentarily quiet the howling void inside, to let pragmatic determination override the ever-present specter of despair. We're not giving up yet. As long as there's a chance, even the faintest glimmer of hope, we keep fighting, I murmur fiercely, tightening my grip on the crowbar. The only response is a low, thrumming purr of acknowledgement, a welcome trickle of calm acceptance helping to soothe my inner demon. The thought of providing some temporary solace for my restive wolf burrs me into action. I set to work, stripping the damaged panels from Arya's crumpled wreck with fresh determination, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of disassembly. Muscle memory takes over as I spend the rest of the afternoon meticulously working on Arya's car. I've extracted the tattered rear seats and am about to call it a day when a glint of gold catches my eye on the floorboards. Bending with a grunt, I retrieve a small polished stone, warm from the filtered sunlight beaming through the windows. An intricate runic symbol is etched into the surface, the grooves filled with metallic gilding. My callous fingers turn it over slowly as my wolf rumbles in the back of my mind. It must have gotten wedged under the seat when Arya went over that ravine edge, I muse, recalling her rattling account of the terrifying incident. She's damn lucky to have survived that impact at all, let alone the attack by that feral. A faint smile tugs at the corners of my mouth as I pocket the keepsake, intending to return it to its owner later. I quickly clean up and pack away my tools, muscles thrumming with a restless energy I can no longer ignore. My wolf is growing agitated, again. Normally he's as content as I am to spend long, satisfying hours working under the hood, but not tonight. This evening that ceaseless gnawing hunger is taking over, and the need to run is becoming overwhelming. As I head out, I fight to maintain my tenuous grip on control. Leaving now, before he begins to thrash under my skin, is the smart move. I turn my steps toward the sheriff's station at the end of Main Street. I can leave Arya's keepsake with Zane to pass along to his mate, then I'll be free to retreat beyond the town's boundaries, where I can unleash my wolf. The way my wolf is feeling right now, there's a very real chance I might be roaming the forests surrounding Willowbrook all night. With every step, an insistent prickle washes across my shoulders and down my spine. I grit my teeth, sweat beading on my brow with the exertion of holding my wolf at bay just a little longer. But the closer I get to the sheriff's office, the more I have to leash him under control. Come on, buddy. I've already told you we'll run. What's gotten into you? Then I step through the front door of the station and my control shatters into oblivion. There, standing behind the reception counter with a perplexed frown, is the most stunningly beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on. Waves of pale blonde curls frame a heart-shaped face, pouty lips parted on a soft exhale as wide blue eyes meet my own startled gaze. And in that endless, cataclysmic instant, everything changes. A veil is ripped away, blinding me with searing truth and clarity. Every instinct, every cell in my body realigns to this singular point of pure, undiluted focus. Because without any rationality or conscious thought, I know she's mine. Her scent overwhelms me. It's nothing I've ever experienced. Warm and soft and achingly, mouth-wateringly feminine. It's a physical caress wrapping around me, clouding out any coherent thought with dizzying waves of pure desire and possessive need. My wolf doesn't just stir at the intoxicating aroma, he bucks and roars triumphantly. With a harsh growl ripping free, I double over as dense musculature erupts in bone-crunching waves. Mate, mate. A roar escapes my shifting muzzle, my face still distorting and reshaping. In another blink, I'm no longer man but my wolf, a hulking mass of fur and fang, towering over the woman who has changed my world and given me every reason to exist. My mate claim. This woman belongs to me, to us. With a rumbling growl of pure possessive need, I lunge forward to seize my destiny as she parts her perfect lips and screams.
The handsome man, who I felt an inexplicable yet overwhelming attraction to the moment I locked eyes with him, is now a gigantic wolf. 1 second he was just a ruggedly built guy staring at me as though I'm a ghost, and the next, he's exploding outward in a whirlwind of shredded clothing and coarse gray fur. My mind stutters, struggling to catch up and make sense of what my eyes are witnessing. This can't be real. It simply can't. Things like this don't happen outside the realm of fantasy and bad werewolf movies. I must have stumbled through some invisible threshold into an alternate universe where the rules of reality no longer apply. Either that, or slipping into insanity was a seamless transition. The wolf, a monstrous beast speckled in gray and white, who easily stands taller than me on all fours, approaches. A chilling calm descends over the station, the other uniformed men frozen like witnesses to a car wreck happening in agonizing slow motion. Someone is screaming, a high, reedy sound of pure terror. It takes me a moment to realize it's me, the shriek ripping from my own constricted lungs. I want to run, every instinct screaming at me to turn and flee from this ungodly, incomprehensible threat. But I can't make my leaden legs comply, can only press myself back against the counter as the wolf stalks closer, with those pale, feral eyes locked unblinkingly on me. Then the sheriff, the man who introduced himself as Mitch to me only moments ago, is there, bolting out from behind his desk with a bellow. "Jake, easy there, big fella." He stands between me and the wolf, trying to placate the slavering beast with upraised hands. My brain stutters again at his words, at the human name with which he's addressing this thing. Jake? How can he be trying to reason with an animal, with the very embodiment of mankind's darkest, most primordial fears? The wolf rumbles deep in its chest, a subsonic growl that has me trembling down to my very core. Its muzzle pulls back in a terrifying snarl, displaying rows of dagger-like fangs longer than my fingers as its pale gaze remains locked on me with unnerving intensity. I'm going to be its dinner. The thought cuts through my panicked haze with brutal clarity. This is really happening. This is how I'm going to die, after coming so far, surviving so much heartbreak and loss, only to be torn apart by a beast born from nightmares. I glimpse one curved ivory fang, glittering with saliva, and sheer terror finally overcomes the mind-numbing shock. With a strangled cry, I spin around and bolt for the only escape my panicking mind can latch onto, the door to the back hallway standing ajar behind the front desk. No, wait, don't run. Another man, just as tall and powerfully built as the sheriff blocking the wolf's path, darts out from behind one of the desks with a shout. He's the deputy, Zane. Stupidly, I read the name on his badge as he extends an arm to catch me, but I swerve to avoid his grasp. It's okay, I can explain, but you need to stay calm and not run away, do you hear me? Zane says. I hear his words, but they don't penetrate beyond the frantic pounding of blood in my ears and my own ragged gasps for air. Explaining this nightmare isn't even a consideration. The only thing that matters is quickly putting as much distance as possible between me and those slavering jaws. There's a commotion behind me, the sounds of a scuffle and angry shouts muffled by the roaring in my head. I catch a glimpse of the wolf leaping over the counter in a single, effortless bound, all rippling muscle and bristling fur. The wolf is chasing me. God damn it! Mitch's muttered curse reaches me as I fumble desperately with the door's handle, finally wrenching it open and stumbling out into the dusky evening. I told her to listen, Zane says. Not to run, not to make this worse. Like I'm the crazy one for running from the literal monster trying to rip my throat out. I half wonder if these lunatics back there are actually insane for not bolting from the gigantic, ravenous beast currently hunting me down. Then the door is slamming shut behind me, and panic clears every other thought from my mind beyond one single-minded objective. I suck in a desperate breath and sprint for the towering pines ahead. Maya, stop, don't run, Mitchie's voice booms behind me. The desperate shout from somewhere behind me barely registers, as white-hot terror lends wings to my steps. I risk a wild glance over my shoulder, and there it is. A blur of coarse fur and flashing fangs, exploding through the doorway in a shower of wooden shrapnel. My scream echoes off the trees as I put on one last burst of frantic speed, the tree line just ahead promising some form of slim sanctuary, even as that low, rumbling growl of single-minded pursuit reverberates through my bones. Then a crushing weight slams into me from behind, driving the remaining air from my lungs in a breathless wheeze. I'm abruptly airborne for a suspended second before slamming to the grass. Something huge and scalding hot settles over my back, pinning me immobilized with its sheer mass. The wolf's breath sears the back of my neck, each exhalation ruffling my hair. This is it, I think, with a strange sense of morbid detachment, as every muscle goes lax in acceptance of my fate. Should have known better than to go wandering off onto an unknown road like a complete idiot. I wait for the killing bite, but it doesn't come. The death I'm certain is imminent is holding itself in suspended animation. I don't understand. Why is the wolf just lying there on top of me? Maybe it's savoring the moment. Maybe it wants to draw out my final agonizing moments. Heavy panting gusts over my ear as the beast shifts position, a deep, rumbling purr vibrating my bones. A rough, sandpapery texture drags along the side of my face in a bizarre imitate caress. Then the wolf shoves its cold nose in the crux of my shoulder and chuffs. Maya, are you all right? Mitch lands on his knees on the ground next to me. I try to speak, but only release a terrified squeak. Zane comes up on my other side. Jake, you have to get off her. You'll crush her. And why is he talking to the wolf as though he can understand? As though he's going to listen? But maybe he will, because only a few seconds ago he was a man. A man who changed into a wolf in front of my eyes. If that can happen to a man, he must be on the edge of sanity. But then the wolf lifts his weight. I choke on grass as I inhale, my chest automatically working to keep me alive. Why am I still alive? I'm so panicked I can barely think straight, let alone process the insanity unfolding around me. My skin goes clammy, pebbled with fresh waves of gut-churning nausea. One minute I was running for my life from a slavering wolf. The next, Jake, you need to shift back, now. Mitch's authoritative tone cuts through the haze of adrenaline and confusion swamping my senses. Shift back? From where? My brain stutters over the words, struggling to find any semblance of meaning or logic to cling to. I want to tell them they're both certifiably insane. They should be doing everything in their power to subdue or destroy the wolf man currently pinning me to the forest floor, not casually conversing with it. He rumbles out a menacing snarl, its hot breath ghosting over the nape of my neck in a reminder of my desperately vulnerable position. I flinch, bracing for those wicked fangs to strike, but instead of rending me limb from limb, Mitch just in mild rebuke. "Easy there, Jake. You're scaring your mate." His mate? What in the actual hell is he rambling about? This is not the time or place to talk of friendship. This has to be some sort of shared psychosis, delusions enabling their minds to blissfully sidestep the true nightmare transpiring here. Except, the wolf man abruptly whimpers, a shockingly vulnerable sound of distress for such a lethal beast. It lifts its jaw from where it was nuzzling the juncture of my shoulder and neck, ears flicking back in an unmistakably canine gesture. "That's it. You don't want to scare her, do you? Just shift back for me. Nice and calm now," Mitch says softly. To my utter astonishment, the hulking mass of fur and muscle slowly draws its weight off my prone form. I wheeze in desperate gulps of air, half choking on the grass, but keep my eyes averted. "Easy does it. That's the way," Mitch continues, murmuring encouragement and reassurance in that same infuriatingly gentle tone. When no tearing pain blossoms through my body after several lung-searing breaths, curiosity finally overcomes self-preservation. I chance a peek through the tangled veil of my hair to see the wolfman beginning to change shape. I watch in a state of numb disbelief as its shaggy fur recedes, rippling and shrinking back into taut, bronzed skin as the elongated muzzle compacts. With a series of harsh crunches and pops, the bone and musculature underneath contorts in a dizzying, unnatural way. One moment the apex predator growls low in its throat, locking me in place with those eerie pale eyes. The next, I'm gaping slack-jawed at a very naked, very human man crouched over me on the forest floor. The man who changed into a wolf is now a man again. He looks at me with an expression of mingled awe, shame, and barely restrained excitement. Those same haunting blue eyes now glittering with keen intelligence and something darker. A shudder rolls through me as I feel a strange pull in my chest toward this complete stranger. Because despite the shock still paralyzing my higher reasoning, another part of me is drinking in the sight before me with undisguised hunger. He's utterly gorgeous, sculpted like a living, breathing statue of masculine perfection, all sinewy, sun-kissed muscle rippling under taut golden skin. His tousled dark hair falls over a strong brow and chiseled cheekbones, just begging for my fingers to rake through those inky strands. Broad shoulders taper down to a powerful chest, dusted with dark hair that only emphasizes the etched definition of his abs. Following the trail lower makes my mouth dry. A hot rush of interest throbs low in my belly at the sight, and I finally tear my gaze away, cheeks flaming. What is wrong with me? I should be terrified out of my wits, not eyeing this lunatic like a piece of steak. Gritting my teeth, I scramble backward until my shoulders collide with the rough bark of a tree trunk, putting a few precious feet between us. "Wait, don't," Jake says. Survival instincts finally kick into gear, the haze of shock burning away to reveal raw, unadulterated fear. My backpedaling kicks up a shower of pine needles. He holds up one hand in a placating gesture, palm outward as if trying to gentle a spooked animal. "I'm so sorry, Maya," Jake rumbles, inching a little closer on his knees. Every corded muscle in his powerful frame is tightly leashed, radiating unspoken menace and coiled force. "I never meant to scare you like this, I swear it. The very last thing I want is to bring you any harm or distress." He frowns, brow creasing as he searches my face. "I lost control back there. Let my wolf get the better of me before I even realized what was happening. But you have to believe he would never hurt you." I'm bordering on hysterics, my mind whiting out at his words and the low, soothing cadence of his voice. He can't be serious. He can't possibly expect me to believe the utter madness spilling from those sculpted lips. Not after seeing what I just saw with my own 2 eyes. "It's too late for that," I blurt out, hearing the unhinged edge to my tone. I rake a shaking hand through my tangled hair, tugging the sweat-soaked strands back from my feverish brow. Are you telling me that wolf was you? That you're some kind of—" "We call ourselves shifters," Mitch supplies, his voice cutting across my panicked rambling. I whip my head toward him, only then realizing he and Zane are still standing a respectful distance away. Mitch meets my wild-eyed gaze steadily. We can change between human and wolf form at will. Usually we have full control of our wolves. His tone is infuriatingly calm and rational, as if explaining advanced physics instead of utter insanity. "Shifters?" I swallow hard against the sandpaper dryness coating my tongue. It's as if a grenade just detonated inside my skull, blowing away any fragile grasp remaining on reality. "So you're telling me you're all—" "Almost everyone in this town is a wolf shifter," Zane confirms. I open and close my mouth soundlessly, my panicked brain utterly incapable of processing this latest staggering revelation. Eyes feeling round as saucers, I glance helplessly between the 3 impossibly calm men and land on Jake, the wolf shifter who had me pinned moments ago. Except now, even as dazed as I am, I can't seem to look away from him. My gaze roams over the acres of smooth flesh pulled tight over defined muscles. Surely men aren't built like this. Then again, he isn't just a man. Jake clears his throat roughly, giving me a start. When our eyes collide, his gaze burns with a scorching intensity that has me squirming against the rough tree bark at my back. I'm not sure what I see lurking in those pale blue depths, but it resonates through my very core, stroking that tiny ember of need rapidly flaring brighter no matter how much I try to smother it. "Maya," he says, my name falling effortlessly from his lips. I like him saying my name, which is an abundantly stupid thing to think. There's a hell of a lot I should probably explain to you first before getting into the whole mate thing, but first, he winces. I should probably get dressed before we continue. Safer that way, for everyone, myself included. The tips of his ears redden, tellingly, and he sucks in a sharp breath through his teeth. Despite my trepidation, I can't help the tiny flicker of disappointment at the prospect of him covering up that glorious body. A not-so-small part of me wants to tell him not to bother. But then common sense slowly kicks in as my capacity for rational thought trickles back into my shaken brain. Having a civil discussion with the naked man who just tried to, well, having clothing involved is probably wise, despite urges I should not be having. Jake growls when Mitch helps me to my feet, but covers it up with a cough. "Sorry, Alpha. Seeing you touch her—" Mitch lifts his hands, palms out. "I get it. Come on. Let's get Maya inside. I'll call Sarah over here too. She can explain things and take you to the wolf's bite later on." I stop in my tracks, glancing up at the tall sheriff next to me. "The wolf's bite?" "The wolf's bite is Willowbrook's hotel. You can stay there while we sort things out." Mitch takes a step, but I've planted my own feet on the ground. He turns around when he notices me not by his side. "I think there's some misunderstanding. I'm not staying here. I just need to get some gas, and then I'll be out of your hair forever."
My wolf nearly breaks free from my skin again when I hear Maya say she's leaving Willowbrook. A violent tremor runs through me, every muscle tensing for a full shift. I grip my teeth, jaw clenching as coarse fur sprouts over my forearms in rippling waves. "Not here, not now. You're scaring her." His frustrated growl vibrates through my bones, but if we have any chance at all with her, I can't let him lose his composure. Human females aren't prepared for a mating bond the way female wolf shifters are. They don't understand the instincts governing us, driving us. Not from the start. They will when they accept the bond, but it will take time and patience to bring Maya around, and it has to be done gently. One wrong move, one moment of lost control, and she'll be gone. And that's a risk neither of us can afford to take, no matter how maddening the compulsion thrumming through us. Mitch offers soothing words as he guides Maya over the wrecked door and back inside the office. She's shell-shocked and understandably freaked as she steps over the broken frame. Zane follows, throwing me a set of sweatpants to hastily pull on over my bare lower half. My own clothing didn't survive the violent shift, the tattered remnants still littering the front office area. I spot the strange carved stone I retrieved from Arya's wrecked car, sitting on the floor amidst the strewn debris. I snatch it up reflexively, momentum already carrying me into Mitch's office. My sensitive hearing catches the tremor in Maya's voice as Mitch presses a steaming mug of coffee into her shaking hands. She's scared, radiating anxiety and confusion in dizzying waves that have my wolf whining in distress at being the source of her pain. I all but shove the stone into Zane's hands. I found this in Arya's car. It was under the back seat. Looks like something she might want back. I turn my full attention on Maya, drinking in the delicate shape of her bowed shoulders and the tousled blonde waves obscuring most of her face from view. She's trembling, whether from residual fright or the aftershock of her body's introduction to my wolf. I wish it had been another way. Any other way. A powerful urge rises in my chest, the need to cross the short distance separating us and enfold her in the protective circle of my arms. To bury my face in that glorious strawberry and wildflower scent, let it infuse every molecule of my being as I enter her body and claim her as mine. Mine, mate, claim. I take a half-step forward, drawn by my wolf's exuberance, encouraged by the way her head comes up infinitesimally at the movement. Those huge blue eyes lock onto me, and my breath catches at the raw vulnerability shining there. Goddess, she's exquisite, brave, and beautiful, and still so unaware of her own power over me. Then she shrinks in on herself, body curling inward in clear self-protection, and I halt in my tracks. The air rushes out of my lungs in a low, dismayed rumble, echoed by my wolf. Maya, I murmur, trying to gentle my tone even as the syllables rasp urgently. I swear to you, I would never do anything to harm you. Not now, not ever. It would go against every fiber of my being. Despite the sincerity ringing in my words, doubt and mistrust are clear in the way she regards me from beneath lowered lashes. And, your wolf? She asks tremulously. How can I trust? He won't simply take over and attack me again like that. My wolf whines at the thought. Should have realized that before you forced me to shift and chased her out the door. His tail beds between his legs and he sinks onto his haunches. Too little, too late. Still, I speak on his behalf. My wolf would put his very life on the line before allowing any threat to come to you. You're the most precious thing in this world to both halves of me, Maya. She's silent for a long moment, visibly chewing over my words as she clutches her coffee mug like a lifeline. Then, finally, her shoulders loosen a fraction. I can't bite back a sigh of relief as the cloud of doubt hazing our new bond smooths out a little. Light blooms within me, just the barest gossamer thread for now, but it's still there in my heart in a way nothing else ever could be. The more we allow ourselves to simply be in each other's presence, the more that spark will kindle, and she'll feel the bond as strongly as I do. Which is why her earlier declaration that she's planning to leave Willowbrook lands with the force of a physical blow. Where were you headed before all this happened and you found your way here? I blurt out. If there's even the slimmest chance I can change her mind, I have to take it. San Francisco? She replies after a beat, clearly taken aback by the intensity of my question. I have a new job offer there that I'm expected to start soon. My features fall at her soft-spoken confession, every muscle locked in grim resolution. No, absolutely not. Not after everything fate has thrown our way to bring us together. After so many agonizing years of solitude and gnawing emptiness, she can't be ripped away so cruelly. I'm about to voice my thoughts when Zane growls, his rumbled words making us both start in surprise. No one is going anywhere. I swing toward him, hackles rising as I catch the subtle shift in his stoic expression. What do you... He hands Mitch Arias' stone. My gut clenches with a sense of foreboding as Mitch goes rigid, his broad shoulders pulling taut as he stares at the stone and curses under his breath. His head swings toward Maya with a heaviness I've rarely witnessed, gaze grave. Even if you wanted to, I need to request you stay, Maya. Her confused glance bounces from me to Zane to Mitch. A faint frown appears between her blonde brows. And why is that? Mitch levels a heavy stare on my mate. Because your life is in danger. What? I cry out. Maya jolts, and I curse myself that I've scared her again. Her brows knit together as she processes Mitch's words. That's ridiculous. But why? You can't just keep me here against my will. To her credit, she holds Mitch's level stare, visibly mustering her depleted reserves of courage. But there's an unmistakable waver in her voice that has my wolf rumbling protectively. I will raise whoever or whatever it is that threatens her. Mitch's expression softens a fraction as he picks up on her renewed distress. You're right, Maya. We can't force you to stay if you're absolutely determined to leave. But recent events have led me to believe human females with any connection to shifters may be being targeted. My stomach drops at his cryptic words, an icy fist clenching around my heart. Mate, danger. The implications ricochet through my mind in a deafening whirlwind. Maya pales, her knuckles whitening around the coffee mug. She swallows hard, full lips parting soundlessly for a moment before the tremulous whisper escapes. Targeted? What? What do you mean, targeted? Her gaze cuts wildly toward me at the word, equal parts dread and plea shining in those summer sky eyes. All I can do is mutely return her stricken look, struggling to process this fresh revelation alongside her, even as my wolf lets out a menacing subvocal growl. He shoots me a weighted look loaded with meaning he doesn't want to unpack in front of Maya. By feral wolves. Mitch's mate Sarah was attacked, as was Aria. If Mitch is bringing it up, then it can't be a coincidence. He must have solid cause for concern. A protectiveness fiercer than anything I've ever known slams into me with staggering force. You'll be far safer here with us than alone out there, unless you happen to have someone else who can look after you properly, someone who knows what you're dealing with and can handle any difficulties that may arise. Mitch continues, allowing his authoritative alpha resonance to bleed into his voice. Maya's eyes slide shut at that and her shoulders slump infinitesimally. My heart absolutely shatters at the defeated little shake of her head and the whispered admission that follows. No, I don't have anyone else. There's a universe of loneliness and resignation contained in her voice cleaves me in two. The urge to gather her against me and never let her go is almost overwhelming. Mitch snatches up his CB radio and keys the mic. Cindy, it's Mitch. I need you to get a room ready at the Wolf's Bite for an extended stay guest. Cindy answers almost immediately. There's an excitement to her voice. Is this for the woman Sally said is? Mitch cuts her off. You know the drill, Cindy. Yes, sir, right away, sir. Cindy's voice crackles back. No one but Mitch's sister or mate would get away with such sass to our pack's alpha. How long do I need to stay here for? Maya asks. I want to interject and say forever, but that would probably encourage Maya to do the opposite. I don't miss Mitch's knowing look before his gaze locks on Maya. Until I can get to the bottom of this new situation. But my job... Maya stares at him, clearly struggling to process everything she's had upended in her world over the past hour. I'll work as fast as I can, I promise. In the meantime, I'll get onto the theft of your credit card and wallet, Mitch says. What? This time I can't contain my shock. My wallet was stolen back in Jacksonville. I don't have any money. I can't afford to pay Cindy for a hotel room. I couldn't even pay Sally for lunch. She's miserable. She blinks back tears, but it's clear today has taken it out of her. Something about that stone has Mitch and Zane erring on the side of caution. If they wanted Maya to know, then they would have told her. Their silence probably means they don't want to worry her, although it's not going to stop me from asking, nor them telling me. Anything that concerns my mate is my business. When I've made sure she's safe, I don't care what Mitch or Zane has to say anymore. I kneel beside her and put my hands on her knees. Don't worry about any of that. I'll take care of everything. You're exhausted. I'll take you to the bite and get you settled. How does that sound? She's pale and her hands tremble. She tries to hide her unsteady hands by clenching them together, but I don't miss anything about her. I can't. If you're about to tell me you can't accept my help when you need it the most, then at least let me, because I've given you the fright of your life. We'll figure out everything after you've had a chance to rest. Heat rises off her skin beneath my touch. Selfishly, I'm glad she's lost her wallet. I'll provide everything she needs, but it gives me time. Time for the bond to strengthen and solidify. Time to persuade her not to take on that job. Time to discover who Maya is and persuade her to want to stay with me. Or for her to take me with her. Her full lips turn down. She's fighting exhaustion, and I plan to take care of her. Doesn't look like I have much of a choice. I don't want to voice the words, but it's true. I take her hand and walk with her to where she's parked outside of Mitch's office. Would you prefer to follow me over to the Wolf's Bite in your own car? I ask. Her cheeks flush a delicate shade of pink as her gaze skitters away. I don't actually have a lot of gas left in my tank. I was running on fumes trying to find the next town before, well, everything happened. Relief rushes through me that she doesn't have an immediate means of fleeing, much as I hate seeing her so discomfited. Not a problem at all, then. You can ride with me. I transfer her suitcases from her car into mine. I'll come back for your car later, get it over to the bite for you. She dips her chin in a tiny nod of acquiescence that causes my wolf to rumble in satisfaction. Such a strong little thing despite her fear and uncertainty. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable sitting next to me. Instead, I launch into an easy recounting of my younger years growing up right here in the heart of Pack territory. See that big fir over there? I point out the towering monolith looming over Main Street, its lowest branches easily twice my height. When I was just a pup, Zane and I used to climb clean up to the top and survey our kingdom from the highest point. Thought we were the lords of all we could see from up there. I chuckle lightly at the memories, sharing more stories of mischievous adventures. She begins to thaw as I tell her about my childhood, where we played ball on summer nights and broke the ice on the pond to go swimming as soon as the spring thaw arrived. You've lived here all your life? Maya asks, her wary curiosity thrumming through our one-sided bond. Born and bred, I say. I wait, hoping she doesn't think I'm some sort of hick, country boy who ignorantly hasn't seen the world. But I'm not human, not fully, and being a wolf shifter in my own pack is everything I need. Maya pauses, looking out of the window as I drive through town. It would be nice to feel a part of something like this. There's an aching wistfulness underlying her words that tugs sharply at me. I open my mouth, 1,000 different reassurances and promises crowding my tongue. But before I can give voice to any of them, she's leaning back against the seat and squeezing her eyes shut, clearly drained to her limits. I put the truck in gear and pull away from the curb, letting the matter settle. I need to focus on her immediate needs, a warm, safe place to process this reality shift, and the knowledge I'm in her corner, willing to fight like hell for her. We make the short drive to the inn in silence. Maya is clearly fighting to stay awake by the time we reach Cindy's hotel, shadows of fatigue darkening the delicate skin beneath her eyes. As I park at the front entrance, Cindy bursts from the front door, vibrating with energy as she ushers us inside with a bright, welcoming smile. Mitch radioed ahead to let me know you'd be joining us with... Her bubbly words trail off as she gets her first good look at Maya, intuitive eyes instantly softening with understanding. Oh, you poor thing. Let's get you settled right away, shall we? I offer Cindy an understanding smile, knowing full well she's going to choose her time to get all the answers anyway. Nothing will stand in the way of news of a new mate in Willowbrook. For now, I'll take the peace. Cindy efficiently checks Maya in at the front desk, pressing a worn brass key into her palm with a reassuring smile. "You're all set, hun. Room 2B, second floor at the end of the hall. Best view of the mountains in the whole place." I gather up Maya's cases, the lightweight bags no burden at all, as I usher her toward the creaking wooden staircase. She follows mutely, a slight sway in her step betraying her utter exhaustion. At the door to her assigned room, Maya turns to face me. Her eyes are glassy with fatigue, but there's a spark of something else in their crystalline depths. Gratitude, perhaps, but it's mixed with apprehension. "Thank you, Jake, for bringing me here." My heart clenches at the raw sincerity in her tone, the way her voice breaks slightly on my name. I want nothing more than to sweep her up into my arms and soothe away every last vestige of strain and uncertainty. Not for the first time, I curse my wolf for scaring her. It's a wall I wish I didn't have to climb. I simply incline my head, letting a small smile play at the corners of my mouth. "Any time, Maya. I mean that." Carefully, I set her bags inside the door, keeping a respectful distance despite every instinct screaming to reach for her. "And I'm sorry for scaring you. My wolf was so happy to meet you and it was all too much for him. I promise, it won't happen again." She hesitates briefly, pink lips parting as if to say more, but then she simply nods, a stray curl tumbling over her brow in a way that makes my fingers itch to smooth it back. "Good night, then. Sleep well, Maya." And then the door is clicking shut with a muted finality, the lock engaging with a soft snick. I stand there for a long moment, palm pressed flat against the aged wood, listening to her soft movements within. Only when I hear the creak of the mattress and the whisper of sheets do I allow myself to ease back. Slowly, silently, I settle my large frame against the wall opposite her door and slide down until I'm seated on the worn carpet, knees bent and arms draped loosely over them. I'll stay here all night and make sure she's safe. Then tomorrow, when she's rested, I'm going to fight for my mate to trust me. And maybe, perhaps, fall in love with me the way I'm already in love with her.
I fall into a fitful sleep, my mind still reeling from the impossible events of the day. Snippets of fur and fangs, of piercing sky-blue eyes and heated touches flit through my restless dreams, leaving me tossing and turning in the unfamiliar bed. When I finally jerk awake, it's to the sight of deep shadows blanketing the room. The only illumination comes from the moon's glow filtering in through the lace curtains, painting everything in shades of silver and gray. Shivering, I pull myself upright and hug my knees to my chest, trying to orient myself in the strange surroundings. The bed is soft and warm, the quilt cozy, but it's not my bed, not my room, not my life as I knew it mere hours ago. A chorus of howls suddenly rises from deep within the forest bordering the inn, the eerie harmony sending goosebumps skittering down my arms. Wolves. How could I have forgotten? The sheriff's words from earlier come rushing back in a dizzying torrent. This whole town, this picturesque little hamlet that seems to have sprung straight out of a Thomas Kincaid painting, is apparently populated by honest-to-God wolf shifters, people who can transform into enormous, deadly predators at will. I scrub my hands over my face. I've fallen down the rabbit hole. Only, instead of a grinning cat and an evil queen of hearts, I've stumbled into a den of creatures that shouldn't even exist outside fantasy novels. Never in a million years could I have imagined such a thing, even at my most wildly creative. My imagination simply isn't equipped for anything close to this. A part of me almost wishes I did possess that kind of vivid imagination, because then I could dismiss all of this as nothing more than an elaborate dream, a bit of mental nonsense whipped up by too much stress and too little sleep. When I pinch the tender skin of my inner arm, the sharp sting and lingering throb are all too real. I'm here, I'm awake, and this is my new reality, as incomprehensible as it may be. A slightly hysterical laugh tries to bubble up my throat, but I hastily swallow it back. No, I can't lose it now. Can't succumb to the panic and disbelief clawing at the edges of my composure, because now my brain has worked its way out of shock and back into survival mode. I know what I have to do. I have to get out of here. Put as much distance between myself and this impossible place before I'm sucked in any deeper. Resolved, I throw back the covers and roll out of bed, my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet. I throw on some clothes as quickly as I can, with trembling hands, not even bothering to check if they match. On impulse, I dig through my toiletry bag until I find my lucky earrings. The antique, delicate golden fans with the decorative insignia in the circular pivot of the filigree blades I found in a second-hand store, the ones I should have been wearing yesterday when I veered off the highway like a complete space cadet. If I'd had you on, maybe I wouldn't have made that wrong turn and ended up in this Twilight Zone hell. But it's too late for what-ifs and should-haves. All I can do now is focus on putting one foot in front of the other until I'm back on the open road, miles away from him, from Jake. Just his name sends a confusing surge of heat and yearning through my midsection, my skin prickling with remembered sensation. The way his hands felt on me, so large and powerful yet infinitely gentle. The hypnotic timbre of his voice weaving those childhood stories as he showed me his home, his world, making me almost jealous. I give myself a firm mental shake. I can't think about Jake right now. Can't let myself dwell on the pull he has on me. I need space, time. This is too much, too soon. It's too everything. I briefly consider trying to wrestle my suitcases out the door with me, but quickly abandon the idea. They'll only slow me down, and I can't risk the noise drawing attention. I'll have to leave them behind, and hope I can arrange to have them shipped once I'm settled. Fingers crossed, Cindy will be able to do that. Decided, I take a fortifying breath and ease open the door as quietly as I can, only to let out a startled squeak at the sight that greets me. Jake is sitting propped against the wall, directly across from my room, his long legs stretched out and arms crossed loosely over his chest. He appears to be fast asleep, his handsome face relaxed and boyish. But it's not his presence itself that steals my breath and sets my heart racing. It's the strange sense of rightness and homecoming that washes over me at the sight of him. He stayed. He waited for me, watched over me, even after everything. The knowledge fills me with a rush of pure peace, settling over my agitated senses. Stop that, I whisper fiercely to myself, giving my head a hard shake. My feelings don't make sense. He's one of them, a wolf shifter. He literally changed into a wolf in front of my eyes, an enormous beast, a predator. There's nothing safe about a man who can do that. By all rights, I should be a quivering, incoherent mess rocking in the corner after witnessing such a thing. I should be clawing at the walls in sheer, unadulterated terror, not fighting the urge to run my fingers through his hair. The fact that I'm not, that his presence soothes rather than terrifies me on some primal level, it's perhaps the most frightening thing of all. Because it means those bonds he spoke of, forces supposedly linking us together, just may be real. All the more reason to slip away now, before they're too strong to leave. Nodding to myself, I gently ease the door shut once more, holding my breath until the latch clicks soundlessly. The window it is, then. The chill night air hits me like a slap as I carefully lever over the sill. I navigate down a conveniently located trellis and drop into a crouch on the dewy grass. My breath puffs out in misty plumes, the cold searing my lungs as I straighten and take stock of my surrounding. Wolf howls echo from every direction, bouncing off the towering pines and mingling with the chorus of nighttime insects. There have to be dozens of them out there. A shudder rolls through me at the thought, but I square my shoulders and push onward toward the parking lot. I feel a sharp pang of guilt for skipping out on Cindy and Sally without settling my bill, but I'll figure out a way to get the money to them once I'm safe in my new life. Relief crashes through me when I spot my trusty hatchback parked next to Jake's truck. He must have brought it over after I passed out. Another selfless gesture I'm about to throw back in his face. I'm sorry, Jake. He was only trying to help, but I'm not what he needs. I'm a regular woman, not a wolf shifter's mate. The words taste like ash on my tongue, but I force myself to keep moving, to dig my keys out of my pocket and slip behind the wheel. I cringe when I turn the key, certain the engine's roar will bring Jake running. But mercifully, the motor only purrs to life with a muted rumble. It's only then I notice the gas gauge. The tank has been topped up, the needle rising to the full mark. Jake again, I realize with a pang, giving me the means to flee even as he tries to bind me ever closer. I should be able to make it halfway to San Francisco before I need to fill up again. The thought firms my resolve as I shift into reverse, holding my breath as I creep down the inn's gravel driveway. Thanks to Jake's impromptu tour earlier, I'm able to easily navigate the turns leading to the main road out of town. My pulse is a staccato drumbeat in my ears as I make the final curve, and then I'm accelerating onto the open highway, the continual black ribbon of asphalt unfurling before me in the moonlight. I'm sorry, Jake, but I have to do this. A flicker of movement catches my eye in the rearview mirror. A shadow detaches from the tree line and pounds on the road after me, effortlessly keeping pace with me and getting closer. The wolf is gigantic, easily the size of a small pony, and the way it's staring at my car, its eyes glowing in eerie green in the reflected brake lights, a violent shiver races up my spine. There is no mistaking the malevolence in that gaze. The dark intent. I barely have time to suck in a panicked breath before the beast gathers to spring. It sails through the air in a magnificent arc of rippling muscle and fur. The impact rocks the entire frame of the car as it lands heavily on the roof, the metal buckling and screaming in protest. I scream too, the sound ripping from my lungs in a raw, animalistic burst of terror. Wicked curved claws punch through the flimsy aluminum like it's tissue paper, tearing jagged furrows. Its snarls reverberate through the interior as I frantically wrench the wheel back and forth in a vain attempt to dislodge the monster. But it's no use. I catch a glimpse of slavering jaws and a flash of wickedly sharp fangs through the tears in the roof, right before something slams into my back bumper with a sickening crunch of metal and squealing tires. The force of it rips a shriek from my throat as I'm thrown forward, the seatbelt digging into my collarbone and chest with bruising force. The wolf tumbles to the roadside in a yelping tangle of limbs. I barely register the sound of my attacker hitting the asphalt over the deafening roar of blood in my ears. Somehow I manage to wrench the wheel around and regain some semblance of control. The car judders and bucks like a living thing as I stand on the brakes, the tires locked in a futile battle against momentum. After what seems like an eternity, the vehicle shudders to a stop, half on the shoulder, half tipped into the drainage ditch. Smoke rises from the crumpled hood in ominous curls, the acrid stench mingling with the tang of my own fear. Sweat and scorched rubber. In the ringing silence that follows, I can only sit trembling violently. My hands are welded to the steering wheel, my knuckles stark white against the dark plastic. The 4x4 that rammed into me screeches to a halt, the driver's side door flying open before the vehicle even stops moving. Jake leaps out, his expression a mask of pure, unadulterated rage and fear. Before I can even blink, he's shifting, his form blurring and contorting until a massive gray wolf stands in his place. With a snarling roar that shakes the very earth, he gathers himself and leaps clear over my crumpled car, charging toward the beast that attacked me. More wolves suddenly melt out of the shadows, their eerie eyes glowing in the darkness. They flow around my car like wraiths, sleek and deadly as they race to join the fray. A huge russet wolf and a dark gray wolf with a white ruff peel off from the pack, falling in behind Jake as he chases down my attacker. I lose sight of them as they disappear into the tree line, the sounds of vicious snarls and snapping jaws echoing through the night. But then Jake is breaking away from the fight, wheeling around to charge back toward me. He shifts in mid-stride, his wolf form melting away until it's the man running full tilt toward my wrecked vehicle. I'm shaking uncontrollably, great whooping sobs wrenching their way out of my chest as the reality of what just happened crashes over me in a relentless wave. I can't catch my breath, black spots dancing in my vision as hysteria claws its way up my throat. The driver's side door wrenches open, startling a choked scream from me. But then familiar hands are reaching for me, strong arms banded with ropey muscle, gathering my quaking form up, as if I weigh nothing at all. "Maya? Goddess, are you all right? Are you hurt?" Jake's voice is a frantic rasp above my head, his fingers running over my face and torso urgently as he checks me for injury. I can only nod silently, too stunned to speak, too overwhelmed by his sudden proximity, the intoxicating scent of pine and rain and musk filling my nostrils. Over his broad shoulders, I catch a glimpse of his truck idling haphazardly behind my wrecked car, the front bumper crumpled and steaming. He must have been the one to ram the wolf. He saved me. Again. "What the hell were you thinking?" he demands hoarsely, his voice raw with a tangled mix of emotions I can't even begin to unravel. "Driving out of town in the middle of the night, alone, when you've been told you're in danger? Do you have a death wish?" I can only stare at him mutely, my throat working around the obstruction of my heart lodged there. He's magnificent in the moonlight, acres of tanned skin stretched taut over rippling muscle and sinew. The urge to reach out and run my palms over that expanse of warm, living strength is overwhelming. But it's the stark fear and desperation etched into every line of his rugged face that finally breaks through my daze. His eyes bore into mine, wild and pleading and so full of emotions that an answering echo kindles to life in my own chest. "Why do you care so much what happens to me?" I rasp, the words tearing free without conscious thought. "You don't even know me, not really, so why?" "Because you're my mate, Maya." The words are low and fierce, vibrating with a resonance that seems to shake the very air between us. "You're everything to me, the only thing that matters in this world or any other." And then he's reaching for me, one big hand cradling my jaw as he brings his mouth down on mine in a searing, claiming kiss. I gasp at the first electrifying brush of his lips, and he takes advantage, licking into me with a low, needful growl. The breath rushes out of me on a whimper as he consumes me utterly, his tongue stroking and twining with mine in blatant possession. It's too much, too fast, and yet not nearly enough. I'm drowning in sensation, in the sheer overwhelming rightness of his touch igniting my every nerve ending. The rest of the world fades away until there is only this, his scent, his taste, the rasp of his stubble against my skin. I can only fist my hands in his hair and hold on as he plunders my mouth, branding me with the heat of his passion and desperation. Jake is kissing me, and it blows my mind. I'm consumed by the way his lips move against mine, masterful and confident. A switch has been flipped inside me, catapulting me from sheer terror to scorching interest in the space of a heartbeat. Before I can even process the shift, I kiss him back with equal fervor. I can't get enough of his scent, that intoxicating blend of fresh pine and petrichor that envelops me like a physical caress. His taste is addictive, sending sparks of pleasure racing through my veins with every slide of his tongue against mine. Instinctively, I wind my arms around his neck, pressing closer as my body molds to his hard contours. A needy, aching emptiness throbs to life deep inside me, pulsing in time with the hammering of my heart. I can't stop kissing him, can't tear myself away from the drugging bliss of his mouth on mine. His tongue delves deep, stroking and twining with my own as he drinks down my whimpers of pleasure. I'm greedy for him, for everything he's offering in this moment. But it's not just my own desire, I realize with a start. There are echoes of Jake's emotions bleeding through, tangling with mine until I can scarcely tell where I end and he begins. His want, his desperate need for me is a living thing, feeding my own interest like tinder to a flame. If we don't stop soon, I'll be incinerated in the bonfire of our shared passion. I want him with a ferocity that leaves me stunned. It's utterly overwhelming and absolutely terrifying in its intensity. Because this isn't me. I don't throw myself at men I've only known for a single day, no matter how compelling the attraction. My parents drilled that lesson into me from a young age. Keep people at arm's length and guard your heart at all costs. It's the only way to protect myself from inevitable pain and disappointment. And Jake, he's getting too close, too fast. The connection between us is unlike anything I've ever experienced, and it's happening at a dizzying speed that makes my head spin. I can't let myself get swept away, no matter how much my body and soul cry out for his touch. I have a life waiting for me, a hard-won career opportunity on the other side of the country that I've fought tooth and nail to secure. I can't just abandon everything because of one fateful meeting, because of something that should make no sense. Desire wars with self-preservation. Two impulses grapple for dominance. It takes all my strength and determination to finally wrench my mouth away from his, to push against his broad chest with shaking hands until he reluctantly releases me. I brace for anger, for frustration at my apparent rejection, but to my surprise, Jake merely looks down at me with a rueful smile, his eyes dark and understanding. One large hand comes up to tenderly cup my cheek. His thumb strokes over my kiss-swollen lips, sending a fresh shiver racing down my spine. I'm sorry for yelling at you earlier, for overwhelming you just now. I didn't mean to let things get so out of hand. I can only shake my head mutely, leaning into his touch despite my better judgment. It's okay. I know you weren't really angry with me, just worried out of your mind. He huffs a soft laugh at that, the sound warm and rich in the darkness. Understatement of the century, sweetheart. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. The raw emotion in his voice makes my heart clench painfully, because I'm not used to people caring about me like this, worrying over my safety and well-being. It's a foreign concept, one that simultaneously thrills and terrifies me. I don't know how to do this, I whisper, the confession tearing free before I can bite it back. Whatever this is between us, Jake, it's too much, too fast. I'm not built for this kind of intensity. His expression softens, a wealth of understanding shining in those impossibly blue eyes. I know, baby, and I'm not trying to rush you or force you into anything you're not ready for, but you have to know, this isn't some passing fancy for me. It's not just physical, even though Goddess knows I want you more than my next breath. I shake my head vehemently, my brows knitting together in confusion. That can't be true. No one feels that strongly about someone they've just met. It's not possible. Jake cocks his head, studying me intently. Why do you think that way, Maya? What makes you so sure it can't happen? I look up at him, my heart in my throat. There's something about the way he's gazing at me, so open and earnest, that compels me to answer. I want to bare my soul, to share every hidden hurt and secret dream, which is utterly crazy. The urge to tell him everything about myself is overwhelming. So overwhelming, I can't stop the words tumbling from my lips. My parents, they weren't what you'd call attentive. I guess I just got used to being an afterthought, to not mattering much in the grand scheme of things. If you call an alcoholic mother who was passed out on the sofa more than she was lucid, and a father who abandoned us and started another family halfway across the country not mattering, then yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with that. I never tell anyone these things. I never had a friend who cared to know. Jake's expression softens, his thumb stroking tenderly over my cheekbone. Thank you for telling me that. I want you to know that I care for you deeply, Maya. The thought of you being hurt, physically or emotionally, guts me. I promise I will never abandon you like that. A harsh laugh escapes before I can bite it back. That's not something anyone can promise, I retort, my tone more bitter than I intend. People leave. It's what they do. Before Jake can respond, Mitch and Zane's wolves come loping back into view. As I watch in amazement, they shift seamlessly back into their human forms. Two tall, muscular, and very naked men. They seem utterly unconcerned by their lack of clothing, but despite their undeniable attractiveness, I feel no stirring of desire for them, not like the all-consuming need Jake ignites in me with a single glance. Jake's arm tightens around my waist as he addresses the other men. "Did you catch the pharaoh?" he demands, a growl underlying the words. "That was a feral wolf?" I blurt out, my eyes going wide with sudden understanding. A violent shiver racks me as I recall the crazed, malevolent gleam in the creature's eyes as it tried to rip through my car's roof to get to me. It had seemed beyond rational thought, consumed by bloodlust and madness. They had dangerous, Jake confirms grimly, unpredictable and ruled by their basest instincts. I swallow hard, my mind reeling. How do wolves become feral? A shadow passes over Jake's face, his jaw tightening. "They're males who never found their mate," he explains quietly. "Without their balancing presence to anchor them, males eventually lose themselves entirely to their animal side." I don't know how to process that, a million new questions blazing through my mind. Would Jake turn feral if he didn't find me? Is that why I'm so important to him? As his mate, I can effectively save him from that future. And if I leave? If I leave, do I condemn him to become that? Desperate for a distraction, I turn my attention to my poor car, assessing the damage with a sinking heart. The roof is a twisted ruin, deep gouges scoring the metal from the feral's claws. The wheels are bent at an odd angle from careening over the gutter, the tires shredded and flat. Ominous steam rises from beneath the crumpled hood, hissing in the cool night air. "What am I going to do now?" I whisper, despair rising like a black tide in my chest. My one means of escape, of fleeing this impossible situation, is utterly wrecked. Jake's hand lands on my shoulder, warm and reassuring. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll fix it up good as new, I promise." I plow my fingers through my hair, scraping it back off my face. It looks like a total write-off to me. Mitch clears his throat, drawing my gaze. "Those earrings," he begins, something about his tone making me stiffen. "May I see them more closely, please?" Confused, I reach up to touch the delicate gold fans. I like to think they bring me good fortune when I wear them, but I guess they failed me tonight. With a shrug, I remove them and place them in Mitch's outstretched palm. He studies them intently, his brow furrowing. "On the contrary, if they had truly failed, you wouldn't be standing here now." I watch as he tilts the earrings towards Zane, realization dawning on the other man's face. He curses under his breath, something like awe and disbelief warring in his expression. "It has the same design engraved in it, the rune pattern just like on Arya's stone," Zane breathes. "And tattooed on the pharaohs," Mitch says. Tension crackles in the air, the three men exchanging loaded glances over my head. I shift uncomfortably, feeling like I'm missing some vital piece of the puzzle. "What does it mean?" I ask, my voice small and uncertain. Jake's arm slides back around my waist, pulling me protectively into the shelter of his body. "It means that you're coming back to my cabin. It's the only way I can keep you safe now."
When I heard Maya leave the wolf's bite in her car, I was beside myself with worry and furious at my own carelessness. How could I have fallen asleep like that, leaving her vulnerable and unprotected? Self-recrimination eats at me, a bitter taste in the back of my throat. Then, when I saw that feral chasing her down, I saw red. A haze of pure, unadulterated rage descended over me, my vision tunneling until all I could focus on was the threat to my mate's life. She could have been killed so easily, ripped away before we even had a chance to truly begin. And what Zane and Mitch told me once I'd gotten Maya safely settled in her room had only stoked the flames of my anger higher. Cindy had handed me her CB radio, Mitch's voice crackling across the line with grim news, the symbol etched onto the runestone I found in Arya's car, and turns out now, the same design as on Maya's earrings, had been tattooed on the ferals who attacked both Arya and Sarah. There's a connection, and not a good one. That was what had them so serious when I gave Zane the stone. I can't believe I let myself drift off like that, leaving Maya open to attack. If I just stayed awake, I could have stopped her before she made it to her car. I would have kept that feral from ever getting close enough to lay a claw on her. If I hadn't been so weak, so foolish, Maya would be safe in her bed right now, not shell-shocked and trembling after such a close brush with death. Inside me, my wolf whines. He's just as furious with my lapse in vigilance, a mirror of my own frustrated self-loathing. Some protector I turned out to be. I've only just found my mate, the other half of my soul, and I've already failed her badly. That's why I didn't give her a choice in taking her to my cabin. I bundled her into my truck, gathered what belongings I could salvage from her wrecked car, and swung back by the bite to collect the rest of her things. She's sitting quietly in the passenger seat now as I guide the vehicle up the long, winding drive home. The cabin I built for my mate, long before I had a face or a name to put to the dream. The haven I've poured myself into in preparation for the day I could finally bring her home. And now, as I pull up to the front porch and cut the engine, rightness settles into my bones, even through the lingering turmoil. She's here, my Maya, under my roof and my protection, at long last. She's still worryingly quiet as I help her from the truck, her slender body rigid with residual shock and fear. I can practically taste her distress on the back of my tongue, the bond between us humming with the force of her rattled emotions. Ushering her inside, I leave her hovering in the entryway as I move to build a fire in the hearth. The room is chilly, the logs stacked and waiting for the first spark of warmth and light. Your house is lovely. Everything looks so new and perfect, Maya murmurs from behind me, her voice hushed in the stillness. I glance back at her over my shoulder, taking in her wide-eyed appraisal of the gleaming wood floors and plush furnishings. I strike a match and touch it to the kindling. That's because it is new. I built this place myself, but I've never actually lived here. Her brows wing upward at that, surprise flickering across her ethereal features. You built this? Jake, it's beautiful. I don't think I've ever stayed somewhere so nice. She runs a hand along the back of the overstuffed couch, her fingertips trailing over the butter-soft leather. Well, except for the little house I bought a few years ago, she amends, something shadowed and pained stealing into her eyes. But it was old and run down. I didn't have the money to fix it up beyond a coat of paint and some elbow grease. She falls silent then, a muscle ticking in her jaw as she curls in on herself. The bond between us resonates with a deep, aching sadness, a yawning chasm of loneliness and longing. Did you live there with your parents? I ask carefully, sensing the razor's edge we're treading. A brittle smile touches her lips, gone as quickly as it appears. No, it was just me, rattling around in that empty house. She shakes her head, visibly pulling back from whatever dark memory has risen up to haunt her. But it doesn't matter now. I sold the place when I got the job offer in San Francisco. A new start, you know. The words are light, but I can feel the desolation lurking beneath them, the ragged wound that still bleeds somewhere deep within her, hidden away from the world's prying eyes. It makes me want to wrap her in my arms and never let go, to shield her from every hurt and sorrow until the only thing she knows is joy and belonging. But I know she's not ready for that yet. My strong, stubborn little mate still has walls up, defenses ingrained over a lifetime of guarding herself. I need to be patient, to let her come to me, in her own time and on her own terms. So what was it about my earrings that had everyone so on edge? I got the impression it was a big deal, but I don't understand why, she asks, clearly desperate to change the subject. I gesture for her to join me on the couch, waiting until she perches stiffly on the edge of the cushion. I want nothing more than to pull her into my side, to feel the living heat of her body against mine, but I resist the urge. The thing is, I begin, choosing my words with care, both Sarah and Arya were attacked by ferals before they found their way to Willowbrook, and each of those ferals had the same rune design tattooed on their skin. I meet her gaze squarely, letting her see the concern and deadly seriousness in my own. The same symbol that was on Arya's stone, and now your earrings. Maya blanches, her already fair skin going chalk white. That can't be a coincidence. 3 women, 3 attacks, all with the same bizarre connection? It's too much to just be chance. That's what Mitch and Zane think too, which is why we need to figure out what it means, before any other innocent women find themselves in the crosshairs, I confirm. I'll help. Research is my specialty. It's a big part of why I landed my new job. She glances around, a small frown marring her brow. I don't suppose you have a laptop I could borrow? My phone is useless without reception. Do you get reception here? A wry smile tugs at the corners of my mouth. I'm afraid the answers we need won't be found on the internet. Mitch has already reached out to Alara, the pack witch. She's our best chance of unraveling this mystery. A witch, Maya mutters under her breath, shaking her head. Of course you have a witch on speed dial, because why wouldn't you? I can feel her struggling to wrap her head around all these new revelations, the reality of the world she's stumbled into still not quite sinking in. She's teetering on the edge of being overwhelmed, her quick mind grappling with too many impossibilities. I've grown up knowing wolf shifters and magic, but none of this is known in the human world, and if it is, it's always regarded as pure fiction. I sense Maya's rising agitation, her need to do something proactive in the face of this new threat. It's a feeling I understand all too well, the drive to take action, to protect and defend what's mine. I know you want to dive right in and start unraveling this mystery, and we will, I promise, but first we need to regroup and gather our resources, I say softly. She looks up at me, a flicker of hope kindling in her tired eyes. Resources? Like what? I give her a reassuring smile. For starters, the Willowbrook Library has an extensive collection of old texts and historical records in the reference section. I bet we can find some clues there about the origins of that rune design. I make a mental note to tell Mitch what we're doing. I'm sure he'll be glad for our help. Her brows lift, surprise and a hint of excitement chasing away some of the shadows haunting her expression. A hidden trove of ancient knowledge? Huh? That sounds interesting. I thought you might like the sound of that. And you won't be doing it alone. I'll be right there with you, every step of the way, I say. Maya blinks, a tiny furrow appearing between her delicate brows. You want to help with the research? Don't you have, I don't know, pack duties or something to attend to? I shake my head firmly, holding her gaze with unwavering intensity. Maya, listen to me. There is nothing in this world more important to me than keeping you safe, than getting to the bottom of why these ferals are targeting women like you, and putting a stop to it once and for all. I lean in closer, my voice dropping to a low, fervent rasp. You're my mate. My top priority, now and always. I'm not about to leave this fight solely in anyone else's hands, not even Mitch's or Zane's. I have a vested interest in keeping you out of harm's way, in making sure you feel cherished and protected no matter what. Her lips part on a soft inhale, a flicker of something warm kindling in the depths of her eyes, but before she can respond, a jaw-cracking yawn overtakes her. But all of that can wait until morning, I say gently, rising to my feet and extending a hand to help her up. You're dead on your feet, sweetheart. Let's get you settled in the bedroom so you can catch some much-needed sleep. She hesitates briefly before placing her small hand in mine, allowing me to guide her down the short hallway to the room I've prepared just for her. Something tugs at my heart as I watch her burrow beneath the fluffy duvet, a sense of rightness clicking into place at the sight of my mate nestled safely in the bed. Sleep well, Maya, I murmur, hovering in the doorway as her eyelids begin to droop. As I pull the door shut with a soft click, A whisper-soft sensation of yearning, of instinctive need tugs though the bond. It's there even if she's not consciously aware of it yet. I close my eyes and rest my forehead against the back of the door. The seed in our bond is growing. It demands all of my self-control to resist climbing into bed beside her and wrapping her up in my arms. But she's not ready. Not yet. So instead, I content myself with standing silent guard over her from the main room. I won't be sleeping, not after the events of this never-ending night. I won't risk leaving her vulnerable again, not even for a moment. The hours tick by with agonizing slowness. I feed the fire to keep the house warm. The shadows gradually lighten to gray as dawn paints the sky outside the cabin windows. I'm contemplating putting on a pot of coffee when a knock at the door startles me. Instantly on alert, I cross the room in 2 long strides and peer through the peephole. The tension drains from my shoulders as I recognize the familiar faces on the other side. My parents, their expressions pinched with concern. I open the door, pressing a finger to my lips in a request for quiet. "Maya's still sleeping," I murmur, ushering them inside with a grateful smile. "But I'm glad you're here." "Of course we're here, son," my father says, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Cindy called and told us you'd brought your mate home. We figured you could use some supplies and some moral support." My mother holds up a large wicker basket, the savory aroma of blueberry muffins wafting enticingly from beneath the checkered cloth. "I know you probably don't have much in the way of groceries yet," she says, her eyes soft with maternal understanding. "Hopefully, this will tide you over until you can make a proper run into town." Emotion clogs my throat as I accept the basket, setting it on the kitchen counter with reverent hands. "Thanks, Mom. You're a lifesaver, as always." She reaches up to pat my cheek, her gaze searching mine knowingly. "You look exhausted, Jake. Why don't you let your father and I sit with Maya for a bit while you catch a quick nap? You'll be no good to her if you run yourself into the ground." I'm already shaking my head before she finishes the offer, stubborn refusal welling up hot and fast in my chest. "I can't," I rasp, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. "Not after what happened last night. I won't risk it." My father opens his mouth to argue, but a soft noise from the hallway cuts him off. We all turn to see Maya standing there, sleep-rumpled and adorably disoriented as she takes in the scene before her. "Oh," she breathes, her eyes widening as they land on my parents. I didn't realize we had company." "Maya," I say softly, crossing to her side and laying a gentle hand on the small of her back. "I'd like you to meet my parents, Edward and Patricia. But you can call them Ed and Patty." My mother beams, stepping forward with her arms outstretched. "Maya, sweetheart, welcome to the family," she gushes, pulling my startled mate into a warm hug. "We're so happy to finally meet you." Maya stiffens against the exuberant embrace, discomfort and unease radiating through our bond. Gently, I ease my mother back with a meaningful look. "Sorry, Mom. This is all still pretty new and overwhelming for Maya," I explain quietly. "She's been through a lot in the past 24 hours. Understanding dawns in my mother's eyes, her expression softening with sympathy. "Of course, how thoughtless of me," she murmurs, giving Maya an apologetic smile. "I'm just so excited to have you here, I let my enthusiasm get the better of me. Please forgive me, dear." Maya pastes on a polite smile, but I can still sense her inner turmoil. "It's okay. There's nothing to forgive." The bond thrums with discord. She's not used to touch, to affection. It makes my heart ache fiercely. Once again, I'm struck by the sense of emotional isolation, the aching loneliness that clings to my mate. Why don't we give Maya a bit of time to wake up properly? Why don't I lay out breakfast for us all and then maybe we can discuss what's been happening with the feral attacks, I suggest. My father nods, his genial expression hardening into something grim. It's a serious situation. If human females with ties to our pack are being targeted, it could be catastrophic for Willowbrook. We're already losing too many unmated males as it is. I see Maya flinch out of the corner of my eye, her shoulders hunching inward as if to make herself smaller. Instinctively, I reach for her, curling my fingers around her slender wrist in a gesture of reassurance. We'll figure this out. With Alara's help and access to the archives Maya and I are going to look through, we'll find a way to keep our females safe, to keep our pack whole and thriving, I say, as much for her benefit as for my parents. My mother smiles, but there's a knowing glint in her eye as she looks between Maya and me. In the meantime, why don't you both come over for Sunday dinner tomorrow night? I'll make a roast, and your brother Ethan should be home from fighting that scrub fire by then. I hesitate, glancing down at Maya to gauge her reaction. I don't want to pressure her into anything, not when I can feel how off balance and uncertain she still is. Sunday dinner it is, I confirm, giving Maya's wrist a gentle squeeze. We'll be there with bells on. It's only because she's human. She doesn't understand our ways. I know my parents will love her like their own daughter. She'll see. There's no need for her to be uncomfortable. My parents beam, gathering up their coats and preparing to take their leave. I walk them to the door, murmuring my thanks and promises to keep them updated on any new developments. And then, finally, it's just Maya and me once more, alone in the intimate hush of the cabin, with nothing but our tangled emotions and the fragile, blossoming bond stretching between us. I turn back to Maya, a reassuring smile on my lips, but my expression falters as I take in her demeanor, the way she's wrapped her arms around herself, her gaze distant and troubled. "Hey," I murmur, taking a cautious step toward her. "Is everything okay? I know my parents can be a bit overwhelming at times." She blinks, seeming to come back to herself with a visible effort. No, they were great, really welcoming. Actually, they're perfect. But there's a hollow note to the words, a sense of unease that belies the polite sentiment. I frown, reaching out to gently tip her chin up with one finger. "Maya, talk to me. What's going on in that beautiful head of yours?" She hesitates, her teeth whirring at her lower lip. "I haven't even been here for a day, and now I'm meeting the parents, and—" She takes a deep breath. "This is just a lot to take in." My heart clenches at the lost, almost frightened look in her eyes. "I know it's overwhelming," I soothe, stroking my thumb along the delicate line of her jaw. "But you're not alone in this. I'm right here, every step of the way." She nods, but there's a flicker of doubt in her gaze that sends a chill through my veins. What if I can't be what you need me to be? You don't even know me, Jake. It doesn't matter. If you could feel the bond like I do, you'd understand our souls know each other. Everything else will fall into place when you start to feel our connection. It has to. There's no other way it can be, I say. "That's just it, Jake. I can't feel a bond. I don't feel anything other than what the hell." She takes a step away, plowing her fingers through her hair. Distance crackles between us, fracturing the fledgling bond. "Look, I'm just going to have a shower. This is a lot to take in before breakfast. Then we'll go to the library, see what we can find." Panic flares hot and bright in my chest, the urge to grab her and never let go nearly overwhelming in its intensity, but I force myself to breathe deeply, to rein in the possessive instincts clamoring to claim and keep what's mine. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready," I manage. And then she's gone, slipping out of the kitchen and leaving me standing alone, feeling cracks web our bond and wondering if I'll be the first shifter in existence to find my fated mate, only to have the bond shatter entirely.
I'm shaky as I step under the hot spray of the shower, my hands trembling as I lather up my hair. The warmth and welcome from Jake's parents was clearly genuine, their love for their son shining through in every word and gesture. They did nothing wrong, and yet I couldn't bring myself to return their easy affection. What the hell is wrong with me? Stupid Maya. Why couldn't you just hug her back? I mutter and stick my head under the hot spray. It's everything I've ever longed for, that unconditional familial bond, the kind of support and care I used to dream about as a lonely little girl. And yet, even now, I find myself bracing for the other shoe to drop. waiting for it all to come crashing down around my ears. Like it always does. I learned a long time ago that it's safer not to have expectations in relation to anyone, to keep my heart guarded and my hopes in check, lest I set myself up for disappointment. That way, when the hurt inevitably comes, it's not quite so devastating. Memories of elementary school flash through my mind as I rinse the suds from my skin. The sting of rejection when no one wanted to play with the girl in the dirty, wrinkled clothes, her hair tangled and unwashed because her mother was too drunk to do the laundry or help her get ready in the morning. The gnawing ache of hunger in my belly as I watched my classmates unpack their lovingly prepared lunches, knowing there would be no food for me because Mom couldn't be bothered to drag herself to the grocery store. I pretended not to care when I wasn't invited to birthday parties or sleepovers, telling myself it was better that way, that I was probably the only kid in school who secretly dreaded holidays and weekends, because at least being in class was a respite from the oppressive neglect waiting for me at home. Those early experiences followed me into high school like a bad smell, an invisible barrier that kept me isolated and alone, even as my peers formed their cliques and social circles. It was easier to bury myself in schoolwork, to spend my lunches tucked away in the library with my nose in a book, easier than facing the stark reality of my friendless state, the gaping absence where a support system should be. Even when I finally escaped to college, fleeing the toxic quicksand of my mother's influence, the damage had already been done. My headspace was fixed, my defenses firmly entrenched. It was simpler and safer to keep my distance from the dramas and entanglements of my classmates, to pretend it didn't gut me every time my phone sat silent and still, never lighting up with a call or text from the woman who brought me into this world. She never asked how I was settling in, never inquired if I'd made any friends or if my classes were going well, never gave me the chance to admit how lonely I was. And now, with Jake and his wonderful, welcoming family, it feels like the universe is playing a cruel joke on me, dangling everything I've ever wanted right in front of me, only to snatch it away when I inevitably prove unworthy and unlovable. It's just this bond, Maya, nothing to do with you. I put the soap back in its place and turn the water off. Because even if Jake truly believes he cares for me, it's only because of this mysterious bond between us. Some quirk of something that's compelling him to want me, not because he's actually chosen me for myself. He has as little say in the matter as I do, a prisoner to instincts he can't control or deny. I'm swallowing the pill and it's bitter all the way down. Jake looks haggard and exhausted as we climb into his truck, the lines of strain evident on his handsome face. He flashes me a tired smile as he starts the engine and points us toward town. I stare out the window as we drive, taking in the picturesque charm of Willowbrook in the light of day. It really is like something out of a postcard, all quaint storefronts and tidy gardens. Everywhere I look, I see evidence of a close-knit community going about its daily routine. Groups of people stroll along the sidewalks, greeting each other with smiles and laughter. Children play tag in the little park we pass, their carefree squeals carrying on the crisp morning air. As we cruise by Sally's Diner, I catch a glimpse of the booths filled with patrons enjoying hearty breakfasts. It's all so wholesome and welcoming, the kind of small-town warmth I've only ever seen in movies, and it only serves to highlight what an outsider I really am, how ill-equipped I am to navigate the unfamiliar waters into which I've been plunged. My stomach twists with unease, and I fight the urge to jump out of the truck and just run. Doesn't matter where to. I just want to go. I wonder idly if there's a car rental place somewhere in Willowbrook. It would be so easy to slip away when Jake is distracted, to leave all this supernatural madness behind and never look back, to salvage what's left of my life before it's too late. Even as the thought crosses my mind, rocks churn to life in my gut. Jake shifts in his seat, his brows drawing together in a frown as he glances over at me. I quickly avert my gaze, afraid he'll be able to read the doubt and turmoil behind my eyes. Mercifully, he doesn't push, simply guides the truck into a parking spot in front of a quaint brick building with Willowbrook Public Library spelled out in cheery gold lettering. It's like something out of a storybook, all climbing ivy and leaded glass windows that glint invitingly in the sun. As we make our way inside, I can't help but marvel at the cozy interior. Worn leather armchairs are arranged in little reading nooks, while rows of lovingly maintained books march along the shelves. The air is redolent with the soothing scent of paper and ink, underlaid with a hint of lemon polish. The librarian behind the counter looks up as we approach, her lined face creasing into a warm smile. She's in her 60s, I'd guess, with steel-gray hair pulled back into a tidy bun and keen blue eyes that appear to miss nothing behind her bifocals. "Well, hello there, Jake," she greets him fondly, coming around the desk to clasp his hand in both of hers. "And this must be your Maya. Welcome, my dear." Her gaze flicks over me, assessing but not unkind. "Fate surely smiled on you, gifting you a mate as fine as our Jake. He's a rare breed, this one." I can only nod mutely, unsure how to respond to such effusive praise. She knows exactly who I am. Word obviously travels fast in this town. Jake ducks his head, a faint flush staining his cheekbones as he clears his throat. "Carol here has known me since I was knee-high to a grasshopper," he explains with a rueful grin. "She's been keeping me in line and out of trouble for as long as I can remember." Carol swats his arm affectionately, her eyes twinkling. "And don't you forget it, young man." She sobers then, her expression turning grave. "I heard about the attack last night. Nasty business, that. I'm glad you're all right, Maya. Jake would have torn the town apart if anything happened to you." I shift uncomfortably, the weight of her knowing gaze a bit too perceptive for my liking. "Thank you. I was lucky Jake got there in time." "That you were," Carol agrees solemnly. She turns back to Jake, her head cocking inquiringly. "Now, what can I do for you two this morning? I'm guessing this isn't a social call." Jake rubs the back of his neck, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "We were hoping to take a look at the books in the secure reference section, specifically anything you might have on ancient runes or symbols." Carol's eyes narrow shrewdly, but she merely nods and gestures for us to follow her. She leads us through a nondescript door at the back of the library, down a narrow flight of stairs that opens into a vast subterranean room. I can't help but gasp as I take in the sheer number of books lining the shelves. There must be thousands of them. Leather-bound tomes with cracked spines and yellowed pages. The air down here is cool and dry, heavy with the slightly musty smell of old paper and preserved knowledge. "The runes section is over there," Carol says, pointing to a set of shelves that seem to stretch on forever. "I trust you'll be careful with them. Some of these books are nearly 1,000 years old." 1,000 years? I breathe, awed in spite of myself. The scholar in me itches to run my fingers along those ancient spines, to lose myself in the secrets and stories they contain. Carol nods, a hint of pride entering her voice. "Oh, yes. The Willowbrook pack has been collecting and preserving the old ways for centuries. There's more knowledge in this room than in all the libraries in the country combined." She pins Jake with a meaningful look then, her tone dropping into something deadly serious. "I know you're trying to help Mitch and the others get to the bottom of these attacks. I'll do whatever I can to aid in the search. There have been far too many pharaohs encroaching on our territory lately, for my liking." Jake's jaw goes rigid at that, a low rumble that might be a growl vibrating in his chest. Mitch is talking to Alara about reinforcing the wards. In the meantime, we'll see what we can dig up in here. Carol nods grimly, already turning to head back up the stairs. "You just holler if you need anything. And remember, be careful with my books." Then she's gone, leaving Jake and me alone in the cavernous space. I trail my fingers over the nearest shelf, marveling at the sheer breadth of knowledge surrounding us. "What did you mean about the wards?" I ask, glancing back at Jake curiously. "Is that like some kind of magical security system or something?" A faint smile tugs at the corner of his mouth as he moves to join me, his shoulder brushing mine as he reaches past to pull out a hefty tome bound in scarred black leather. "Something like that," he confirms, blowing a layer of dust off the cover before gingerly cracking the book open. The wards are ancient spells woven into the very bedrock of our territory. They keep Willowbrook hidden and protected from outsiders, cloaking us from any who might seek to do us harm. I frown at that, a thought occurring to me that sends a little shiver down my spine. But I'm an outsider. Or I was before all this mate stuff happened. How did I get through the wards if they're supposed to keep people like me out? Jake stills at that, his gaze rising to meet mine over the top of the book. There's heat in those blue depths. A possessive satisfaction sends liquid warmth pooling low in my belly. Only someone with wolf shifter blood could ever cross into Willowbrook. The fact that you found your way here at all means you were meant to be here, Maya. That you belong with us, he says. I swallow hard at the intensity shimmering between us, my mouth suddenly dry. There's a part of me that wants to deny his words, to argue that it's impossible, that there must be some mistake, because I can't possibly have a single drop of supernatural DNA in my decidedly mundane body. But I can't seem to force the denial past my lips, not when every instinct I possess is screaming that he's right, that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, that Jake is my destiny, my future, whether I'm ready to accept it or not. It's a revelation I'm not prepared to face, the implications too staggering to wrap my head around. So I do what I always do when my emotions threaten to overwhelm me. I shove them down deep and focus on the task at hand. Right. I snatch a book at random off the shelf and move toward the long wooden table in the center of the room. We've got a lot of ground to cover if we're going to figure out what these runes mean and how they're connected to the attacks. Jake's gaze burns into my back as I flip through the pages, my heart raveting against my ribcage. Mercifully, he allows the change in subject, moving to take a seat across from me with his own stack of books. And so we begin our search, the only sounds the rasp of turning pages and the occasional creak of a chair. But even as I lose myself in the arcane symbols and dense academic jargon, I can't quite shake the feeling that I'm tilting on the edge of a precipice and about to fall into a deep, dark abyss. We spend all day ensconced in the library's basement, poring over the ancient tomes with a singular focus. Time blurs and stretches, the outside world fading away until there is only the soft rustle of turning pages and the warm, solid presence of Jake at my side. I lose myself in the books, each one more stunning than the last. Many are handwritten, the flowing script elegant and precise. Detailed illustrations dance across the yellowed parchment, the colors still vivid despite the passage of centuries. Some pages are even edged in delicate gold leaf, the precious metal glinting in the soft overhead light. As I carefully turn the fragile pages, the musty scent of old paper and leather fills my nostrils, the aroma as comforting as a childhood blanket. I find myself reading through passages detailing the power of magical symbols, my mind drifting to the mysterious Elara. A witch, a real live witch right here in Willowbrook. It's hard to wrap my mind around, even knowing I'm reading books handwritten by witches long dead. What must it be like to wield such ancient knowledge, to bend the very forces of nature to your will? The thought sends a shiver of excitement down my spine, a yearning to unravel the mysteries thrumming just beneath the surface of this strange new world. I would have loved a place like this as a child, I murmur absently, running a reverent finger over an illuminated manuscript depicting an ornate runic circle. The symbols seem to dance before my eyes, their meanings tantalizingly just out of reach. "Do you mean Willowbrook?" he asks, genuine curiosity lacing his tone. I start, my cheeks heating with a mortified blush, as I realize my bad habit of talking to myself has reared its head once again. But Jake is watching me intently, his expression open and inviting despite the fatigue etched into the lines of his handsome face. Somehow, I find myself answering honestly before I can think better of it. The library, the characters in books, they were my friends, I admit softly, my gaze dropping to the pages spread open before me. For the time I was reading, at least, I never wanted their stories to end. I shrug, trying to play off the raw vulnerability of the confession. But that was okay because I was always in the library and able to find another book, another friend. My lips curve in a wistful smile. I used to wish I could work in a library someday. That way, I'd never have to be without a new adventure or companion again. Jake is silent for a long moment, his eyes boring straight into my soul. I shift uncomfortably, fighting to keep my expression even, certain he can read every secret hurt and longing I've tried so hard to bury. "You'll always have friends here, Maya," he says at last, his voice low. "We're more than just a town, more than a random collection of people thrown together by circumstance. We're a pack, a family." I shake my head, the concept so foreign I can scarcely wrap my mind around it. As much as I'd love to give into the fantasy, I know it's just that. It's not real. But I'm new. No one knows me. I haven't given them any reason to care. We're wolf shifters, Maya. We don't judge based on surface impressions or fleeting interactions. We see into the heart of a person, down to their very soul. It's instinct, deeper and truer than any human bond could ever be, Jake says. I bite my lip, struggling to wrap my mind around the concept. In my experience, people's reactions have always been the exact opposite. Dismissive at best, outright contemptuous at worst. The idea that anyone, let alone an entire community, could see beyond the physical is too good to be true. Desperate to deflect, to regain some equilibrium, I blurt out the question burning in my mind. "What do you see in me then? When you look past the surface, what is it you sense?" Because, from where I'm sitting, there's not much to find. The words escape before I can call them back, my throat tightening with the effort of holding in the sudden surge of emotion. I brace myself for platitudes, for the easy brush-off I've come to expect, but Jake's gaze never wavers, a wealth of understanding and compassion shining from those striking eyes. "I sense your kindness, your courage, even in the face of a world determined to beat you down. You've been hurt, wounded in ways no one should ever have to endure, and it's made you wary, guarded." I want to tell him to stop, but the words are as dry as my mouth. I can't get them out. I can only keep listening. His expression gentles. "But that's just armor. A way to protect the beautiful, loving heart you keep so carefully hidden away. You think you're not worthy of affection, that you'll never be enough, but Maya, you are so incredibly lovable. Honest, brave, fiercely intelligent and determined. I sense it in you, even if you can't sense who I am to you yet." Moisture stings my eyes, my chest constricting with the force of his words. It's everything I've ever wanted to hear, the validation I've craved for so long, and yet it seems too good to be true. How can he possibly know me so well after mere days? Jake reaches out to take my hand in his much larger one. The contact sends a jolt of electricity arcing through me, my breath catching in my throat. "I feel your wariness," he says softly. "Your need to analyze, to turn things over from every angle before letting yourself believe. It's okay, Maya. I understand." I gape at him, my pulse thundering in my ears. "How?" A corner of his mouth lifts in a crooked smile. "The bond. It lets me see beneath the surface you show the world. Lets me know you in a way that goes soul deep." His thumb strokes over my knuckles, leaving a trail of sparks in its wake. We may have only just met in this lifetime, but on a fundamental level, we've known each other forever. It just takes the human mind a little longer to catch up with what our spirits have already recognized. I can only shake my head mutely. overwhelmed by the sheer conviction in his voice. It sounds wonderful, this idea of being so completely understood, cherished. But a lifetime of disappointment is difficult to overcome, the cynical voice in the back of my mind insisting it can't possibly be real. Jake gives my fingers a gentle squeeze before releasing me. "You're tired and hungry. What do you say we head back to the cabin for some dinner?" I blink at him, nonplussed. "How could you possibly—" He taps his wristwatch with a wry grin, the solemnity of the moment easing into something lighter, more playful. It's nearly 9 o'clock, and we haven't stopped for food since breakfast. Even I can do that math. As if on cue, my stomach lets out a mortifyingly loud rumble. A laugh startles its way out of me, the sound rusty and unpracticed. Jake chuckles, the rich sound wrapping around me like a caress. I sway toward him subconsciously, drawn by an invisible thread. It takes every ounce of willpower I possess to keep my feet rooted in place. "Dinner sounds good," I manage, my voice emerging breathier than I intended. "Come on," he says, pushing to his feet and extending a hand to help me up. "Let's grab a few of these books to take back with us and call it a night. We can pick up again tomorrow after we've gotten some decent food and rest." I hesitate only briefly before placing my hand in his, allowing him to pull me up and out of the maze of shelves. His palm is warm and calloused against my own, his grip strong and sure as he leads me back upstairs. To my surprise, Carol is still puttering around the library when Jake and I emerge from the basement archives, a stack of promising tomes tucked under his arm. "Don't you ever go home?" I can't help but ask, an amused smile tugging at my lips as I take in the older woman's tidy appearance. Carol laughs, the sound bright and cheery in the hush space. "This is my home, dear. I'm the only librarian we have in Willowbrook these days." She waves a hand at the cozy reading nook near the front windows. "I'd be delighted to have an extra set of hands around here, but no one else seems too keen on the job." Her gaze slides to me with a considering look. "Unless you'd be interested, of course. A book lover like yourself would be right at home here amidst the stacks." The thought of spending my days surrounded by the very books I've immersed myself in today sends a little thrill zinging through me. I can almost picture it. Quiet mornings spent shelving and organizing, with plenty of free time to curl up and devour whatever literary treasure catches my fancy. But even as the fantasy takes shape, the reality of my situation reasserts itself with a dull pang. I have a life waiting for me in San Francisco, a career for which I've worked tirelessly. As idyllic as working in Willowbrook's library sounds, I can't afford to lose sight of my goals now. If I hear of anyone looking for a position, I'll be sure to send them your way. I hedge with a small smile. Carol seems to sense my inner turmoil, her expression softening as she nods in understanding. "Well, you two take good care of my precious books now," she says, waving us off with a fond look. "They're the closest thing to children I've got, so I expect them treated with the utmost love and respect." "You have my word," Jake rumbles solemnly, though the corner of his mouth quirks with amusement as he meets my gaze. Amusement and something warmer that sends a shiver skating down my spine, despite the pleasant temperature of the library. We make our way outside, the crisp evening air raising goosebumps along my exposed forearms. As we approach Jake's truck, I can't help but notice the way the lamplight silhouettes the hard lines of his body, throwing his chiseled profile into stark relief. He really is absurdly handsome, all sinewy muscle and broad, powerful shoulders, offset by a face that could have been carved from granite. High cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with dark stubble, and those piercing pale eyes that seem to see straight through me. He reaches around me to open the door and his hand brushes over my arm. The contact sends a frisson of electricity arcing between us. I suck in a sharp breath, my pulse kicking up a notch as heat blossoms across my skin. His eyes glow, but only for a moment. It happens so fast I start to doubt if I saw it happen at all. Mom sent word that she made a lasagna for us, She figured you'd like a home-cooked meal, he says. My mouth waters at the mere mention of lasagna, a dish I've only ever had from a box or a restaurant before. My own mom definitely didn't cook anything like that. Canned food was what I grew up on. I hope I didn't put her out. I've never actually had real homemade lasagna before. Something flickers across Jake's expression. A brief tightening around his eyes, a muscle ticking in his stubbled jaw. But it's gone before I can decipher it, replaced by that same warm half-smile that never fails to send my pulse into a free-fall. You're in for a real treat, he says simply, opening the passenger door in a wordless invitation to climb inside. Mom's lasagna is practically legendary around these parts. I settle into the butter-soft leather, inhaling the familiar blend of truck interior and Jake's fresh pine and petrichor scent. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite aromas, I realize with a small pang of surprise. So warm and reassuring. The promise of safety and comfort. We pull up at the cabin. I'm surprised we arrived here so quickly. My whole attention was wrapped up in Jake on the drive back to the cabin, not my surroundings. An unfamiliar warmth blooms in my chest, the feeling both comforting and faintly unsettling. I try to dismiss the peculiar sensation, but it lingers. We get out of the truck, Jake cradling the stack of books we brought back from the library. I follow him inside, my gaze drifting over the cozy living area. He sets the books down on the coffee table before moving to tend to the fireplace. I settle onto the plush sofa, sipping slowly at the glass of deep red wine he pours for me. My eyes are drawn inexorably to Jake as he deftly builds up the fire, stoking the fledgling flames until they're crackling merrily. I can't seem to tear my stare away from the rippling play of muscle beneath his shirt, or the way his broad shoulders shift and flex with each economical movement. And then there's his scent, that intoxicating blend of fresh pine, earthy petrichor, and pure masculine musk that wraps around me, calling to me. I inhale deeply, greedily drinking it in. Heated tension begins to coil low in my belly as I watch him build the fire. A slow, molten need simmers through my veins. It's all-consuming, instinctive in a way that has me squirming restlessly. My pulse thunders in my ears, each breath coming a little shorter. I'd say I was catching a fever, but I don't feel sick. Not at all. In fact, it's the opposite. I feel like I'm waking up. When Jake glances back over his shoulder, I quickly avert my gaze, but not before catching the slow curve of his smile. Heat rushes into my cheeks, my mortification only stoking the smoldering coals of desire flaring to life inside me. I shouldn't feel this way. Only a day ago, this man was a complete stranger. Not just a man, a wolf shifter, a terrifying, supernatural entity I really know nothing about. The thought is jarring enough to momentarily douse the raging inferno coursing through me. I take a long, steadying sip of the rich burgundy wine, savoring the bold, fruity notes as they roll over my tongue. It's delicious, and exactly what I need to regain some semblance of control. Just relax here, Maya. I'll get dinner ready and bring it in here. The kitchen's a bit too cold to be comfortable, Jake rumbles, drawing my gaze back to him. He moves into the kitchen, leaving me alone with the soothing sounds of the fire and the occasional clatter of pots and pans. I take the opportunity to examine the small stack of books on the coffee table, my restless fingers already itching to immerse myself in the knowledge they contain. One in particular catches my eye. A thick leather-bound book I don't recall seeing in the library stacks we were going through. Frowning, I carefully pull it from the pile and settle it on my lap, prying open the cracked cover. The faint scent of aged paper and dust assails my senses as I gently smooth out the first few pages, yellowed and brittle from age. The elegant calligraphy is faded but still legible, the looping script proclaiming the subject matter to be a historical account of the mating bond. My breath catches in my throat as the pieces start to click into place. Jake must have added this book to the pile. Anticipation thrums through me as I turn the fragile pages with the utmost care. The first few entries seem to focus on the lore and history of shifter mating rituals, detailing the deep spiritual connection forged between two wolves who find their other halves. It's fascinating, but doesn't pertain to me. But then I reach a passage accompanied by a beautiful hand-drawn illustration, a woman with flowing hair standing before a snarling, half-transformed beast, and the chapter heading above jumps out at me. Bonds between full-blood and mixed-blood shifters. My pulse thunders in my ears, my chest constricting as each shallow breath wheezes past my lips. The words blur on the page as I read how the bond between a wolf shifter of pure lineage and their mate of mixed blood is as sacred and unbreakable as full-blooded shifters, the only difference being that those of watered-down blood will feel the effects of the bond slower than the full blood. The text urges those with full blood to treat their mate with great patience under these circumstances. My fingers clench on the page as I read. My mind spins as it describes exactly what I've been feeling. The strange pressure in my chest, the feeling of burgeoning fullness and warmth, the sense that another presence is aware of me, my hyper-awareness of my mate and everything about him. The overwhelming state I'm in will build and build until it cannot be denied. It's the bond, directing me to feel things against my will. It doesn't matter that we've only just met. Time has no meaning when it comes to the bond. 100 tiny moments replay in my mind's eye, each one taking on a new, profound meaning. The electric awareness that sparked between us from that very first encounter. The comfort of having Jake near, the way his scent and presence alone seemed to soothe some deep part of me. The dizzying flare of desire whenever we touch, that molten need to press closer, that insistent, irresistible tug driving me to him. Numb fingers turn the page, and I suck in a sharp breath at the illustration taking up the next spread. Two figures are entwined in what is unmistakably a passionate embrace. Heat scorches my cheeks, my mouth going dry as my gaze skates over every detail. Because this is what the book is telling me is inevitable. The final, soul-deep melding that will complete and solidify the mate bond between Jake and me in the most instinctive way possible. A part of me thrills at the thought to be that intimately, that profoundly connected to another person. It's the stuff of poetry and fairy tales, the kind of union I've secretly dreamed of since I was a girl. To belong to someone, for someone to want to belong to me. But another part of me, the part conditioned by years of hurt and bitter disappointment, recoils in sheer terror. Because this is forever. And this is not a choice. The bond won't just tie Jake and I physically together, but our very souls, stripping us of our own free will. It sounds impossible, but everything I've seen in the past few days is impossible. And is that truly what I want? What's best? What if I'm not enough for him, not strong or whole enough to be his forever? What if I fail him, disappoint him in some catastrophic way down the line? What if the bond sours, turns toxic, and traps us both in a twisted, unbreakable knot of codependency and resentment? I've never been enough for anyone before. My own parents couldn't even be bothered with me, let alone love me with the all-consuming intensity this connection demands. How can I possibly be the future Jake needs when the stakes are higher than I could ever have imagined and there is no time to even think? The bond has stripped me of my free will. This is too much, too fast. My head is spinning, my lungs burning as I fight for oxygen I can't seem to draw. I need space. I need time and distance to process everything crashing over me in waves.
The bond flares with intense pain. I drop what I'm doing and bolt from the kitchen to the living area, lasagna forgotten on the cooling board, to see the book on mate bonds slipping from Maya's fingers. Pain radiates through my chest as she buries her head in her hands. Her shoulders hunch inward, every muscle tensing as a maelstrom of doubt and fears swirl through the bond. Maya? She flinches away from my touch as I settle beside her on the sofa. She can't even look at me, shuttering those beautiful eyes to hide the storm raging behind them. I pick up the book and put it back on the table. Sweetheart, talk to me, I urge. I send out a tendril of assurance, but she curls tighter into herself. A pang of despair lances through me at the anguish rolling off her. A sea of her fear and doubt swamps through our connection, threatening to drown us both before it can gain a foothold. I can't do this. The whisper is barely audible, but it cleaves straight through me nonetheless. I'm not enough, Jake. I'll never be enough. I'll only disappoint you. Hurt you. I won't mean to, but it will happen. Disappoint me? Hurt me? The thought is so ludicrous that it leaves me momentarily stunned. How can she not see, not feel, down to her very marrow how utterly vital she is to me? How my entire world has been leading up to this singular point in time when our paths finally meet. She's a literal dream come true. Emotions spike through me in a dizzying rush, panic, desolation, and the urge to flee searing through me. She's going to run, I realize with a surge of cold dread. My mate is going to leave me. Not because she wants to, but because she simply doesn't understand. Because she's so filled up with a lifetime of mistreatment, she can't see the bond for what it is. Cracks web on the verge of our bond shattering apart. My wolf howls inside me. The both of us act. I won't let that happen. In the space of a heartbeat, I pull her into my arms. No, I rasp, the word tearing itself free in a raw growl. Don't even think about it, Maya. You're not going anywhere. Not now, not ever again. She's trembling, every muscle quivering with the strain of holding herself together. But I simply tuck her closer, letting my lips brush the fine wisps of hair at her temple as I push everything I feel for her through the bond. I've been too tentative, too weak when she needs to know exactly how I feel. I take a steadying breath, gathering every scrap of emotion roiling through me, the awe, the devotion, the infinite sense of rightness that holds me in captivated silence whenever I look at her. Then I let it all pour through to her in one blazing torrent, holding nothing back. I let the currents of my essence surge forth to crash over Maya in waves of pure, undiluted feeling. I don't try to gentle or temper the force of it. I need her to experience the full depths of what she awakens in me. She doesn't have to do anything but exist for me to love her. Fate does not make a mistake. Even if there was no bond, no such thing as fated mates, I would be drawn to her. I would always choose her. The limitless sense of belonging, of having found the missing piece of my soul at long last, the innate possessive need to shelter and protect her at all costs, to lay the world at her feet if that's what it takes to make her smile. I send her everything my soul is made from until there's no way for her to tell where I end and she begins. I don't relent, don't try to gentle the tide. She needs to know, to feel, until full understanding is seared into her very bones. She jolts, gasps. I hold her tight and keep pushing, and the fissures in the bond web and crack and splinter. You're mine now, Maya. You're my mate, my partner, my everything. There is no doubt. I need you to feel me, Maya. Truly feel me in a way that drowns everything else out. My palm curves along the elegant column of her neck, fingers spanning the delicate flutter of her pulse beneath satin skin. The contact sends a frisson of heat and awareness cascading through the bond, stoking the embers of our connection higher. You are more than enough, in every possible way. I've known it since the first moment I laid eyes on you, the first breath of your scent on the air. You captivated me utterly, your very essence calling to me so profoundly that I knew my soul was lost to you before we'd even spoken a word. My fingers wind through her hair and my palm cups her cheek. Goddess, Maya, you have no idea how many long, empty nights I spent dreaming of this, of the day my mate would finally walk into my life and everything would make sense. I tilt her chin so she has to look up at me, and I fall into twin pools of gleaming blue. I draw in her strawberry and wildflower scent, letting it infuse into my blood. You're it for me, sweetheart. The very core of my world, the reason my heart keeps beating. And if you'll let me, I'll spend every moment from now until the end of time showing you just how cherished and adored you are, how worthy you are of every scrap of devotion I'll freely give. Those summer sky eyes are locked onto mine, wide and wondering and so beautifully vulnerable. She has to believe me. There's no other way. A life without her makes no sense. I'll show her exactly what she means to me until there's not a whisper of doubt in her mind. I send a blaze of molten light through the bond so brilliant and searing her breath stutters. There are no more choices to be made, no exits left to take. The path has been decreed, and all Maya can do is accept. I duck my head to hers, claiming her lips with a searing kiss. The bond throbs with determined light. I pour everything of myself to her so there will be no more questions. I hold her in a tight embrace, letting her feel my love, my desire, and then, slowly, incrementally, she melts against me and begins to kiss me back. I push through the haze of my own desire as I deepen the kiss, letting it consume us both in a firestorm of need. It's working. She's finally accepting the inevitable, surrendering to the fated connection binding us together. My wolf howls in triumph, the raw surge of victory thrumming through my veins. You're it for me, Maya. Bond or no bond. You're the one and only. She's precious, unbearably beautiful in her vulnerability, a goddess in the flesh, just waiting to be worshipped. And she's mine, now and forever. I join Maya on the sofa, holding her close as we share this special moment together. Our hearts beat in perfect harmony as we embrace. Can I share this moment with you, Maya? I whisper softly against her neck. Please? I need to be close to you, to share this connection, to be yours as you are mine. Her eyes open slowly, filled with trust and love. The vulnerability and devotion in those beautiful blue depths takes my breath away. Yes, she whispers, wrapping her arms around my neck. Stay with me, Jake. Please, I need you, please. Overwhelmed with emotion, I hold her closer. This tender moment means everything. The culmination of years of searching for my soulmate. All the lonely years fade away in this perfect connection. We embrace tenderly, our hearts and souls connecting completely. The bond between us pulses with warmth and joy, creating a perfect moment of unity. She nuzzles into my chest with a contented sigh, her eyes already fluttering closed as the pull of sleep becomes too strong to resist. I simply hold her tighter, marveling at the way our bodies fit together like two puzzle pieces at long last united. She's everything. My entire world condensed down into this one perfect, precious woman. My mate, my partner, my forever love, I whisper. I press a kiss to Maya's brow, my own eyes growing heavy as exhaustion and overwhelming joy tug me toward oblivion, but I resist the pull of sleep. She's mine now, in every sense of the word, and I'll spend eternity proving myself worthy of her love and trust. Despite the weariness settling over me, I force myself to remain awake. The feral is still out there, and I won't rest until I'm certain Maya is safe and protected. So I hold her close, breathing in her sweet scent and letting the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against my own lend me strength, no matter the cost to myself.
I wake in Jake's arms. I'm still on the sofa in his living room. The fire is burned out, the embers barely warm, and weak sunlight shines through the windows, signaling the arrival of dawn. The first rays of the rising sun touch the sky, casting a warm glow over the room. Disorientation clouds my mind as a dull, throbbing sensation resonates within my head. A distant ache tugs at my heart, and I wonder why I'm here, nestled against Jake. His gaze meets mine, and he smiles down at me, his eyes reflecting a mixture of tenderness and concern. "How are you feeling?" he asks, his voice a gentle rumble against the silence that envelops us. As I study his features, I notice the exhaustion etched into his face. Dark circles rim his usually bright gaze, and his tanned skin has taken on a sickly gray hue. Suddenly, the events of last night come rushing back in a blinding wave of horror. I remember reading that book on bonding, the shock giving way to an all-consuming desire. It was like I was drugged, acting on pure, unfiltered urges as I begged Jake to make love to me right here on this very couch. Oh God, what have I done? Jake's smile fades at the panic no doubt etched across my face. My chest tightens, a swirling vortex of dread threatening to pull me under. But before either of us can speak, the sound of shattering glass jolts me out of my spiraling thoughts. "Bertle," Jake yells, leaping off the couch and shifting into his massive wolf form in one fluid motion. His growl reverberates through the house, shaking the very foundations. Jake's wolf is a breathtaking sight to behold, a majestic creature with a thick, speckled coat of gray and white fur. His powerful muscles ripple beneath his pelt as he moves, each step a testament to his raw strength and agility. Jake's eyes are twin orbs of glowing light blue. His muzzle is wrinkled in a snarl, exposing wickedly sharp fangs that glisten in the dim light. Terror grips my heart, but it's quickly followed by a steadfast determination and a love so profound it leaves me stunned. Surely I can't have such rioting emotions. But the pharaoh growls again, and my head blanks with blind panic. I scramble away from Jake, my eyes wide with fear as I take in the horrifying scene unfolding before me. The feral wolf, the same one that chased my car and bared its fangs at Jake, now stands in the living room, a menacing presence that sends shivers down my spine. Thick ropes of saliva drip from its gaping maw, hitting the floor with a sickening splatter. Its hackles are raised, the coarse fur standing on end, a clear sign of aggression that leaves no doubt as to its hostile intentions. My heart pounds against my ribcage with such force that I can hear the blood rushing in my ears. Jake lunges at the feral, and the two wolves clash in a vicious battle that defies the laws of nature. Furniture is destroyed, reduced to splinters as their massive bodies collide. The precious books from the coffee table are sent flying, their pages fluttering through the air like confetti. It's a dirty fight, filled with snarls that reverberate through the room and snapping jaws that threaten to tear flesh from bone. The sound is pure animal, and it sends a chill down my spine. I can't help but scream, the sound tearing from my throat in a guttural wail as I watch helplessly from the sidelines, unable to tear my eyes away from the carnage unfolding before me. Tears stream down my face, hot and salty, as I see Jake putting himself in harm's way to protect me. The feral's claws catch his side, tearing through flesh and fur with a sickening sound that makes my stomach churn. Blood sprays across the room, painting the walls and furniture with a gruesome crimson hue. Jake yelps in pain, the sound piercing my heart like a dagger, but he doesn't back down. He's getting hurt because of me, and the guilt is almost too much to bear, weighing heavily on my shoulders like a lead weight. I can't let this happen. I won't let Jake sacrifice himself for my sake. Steeling my resolve, I make a decision. I'll let the feral take me if it means saving Jake from further harm. But as I go to move, to offer myself up as a distraction, a burst of terror crashes over me, freezing me in place. Jake's wolf turns to stop me, his sky-new eyes burning with a fierce determination that warns me against taking such a foolish action. In that moment of distraction, the feral seizes the opportunity and jumps on his back, tearing into his skin once more with its razor-sharp claws. Blood sprays forth, painting the air with a crimson mist, and I cry out in anguish, my voice raw and hoarse from the screams that have already torn from my throat. Jake manages to throw the feral off, but he's badly wounded, his once pristine fur matted and soaked with his own blood. I can't just stand here and do nothing. I have to help, to do something, anything to stop Jake from getting hurt even more. My eyes dart around the room, searching for a weapon, anything that could give me an advantage against the feral beast. And then I see the array of fire irons scattered over the floor. Perfect. I grab the poker, my hands shaking violently as adrenaline courses through my veins. Without hesitation, I lunge forward with all the strength I can muster and shove it into the feral's side, the force of the impact jarring my bones. The wolf yelps in pain, a high-pitched howl that pierces the air and sends shivers down my spine, but my attack has served its purpose, giving Jake the opening he needs to strike. He moves with a preternatural grace, his powerful jaws clamping down on the feral's flesh, wounding it badly. The feral whimpers, a pitiful sound that almost elicits sympathy, but any trace of mercy is quickly extinguished by the memory of the violence it has wrought. With a desperate lunge, the feral leaps out of the shattered window, shards of glass raining down like sparkling tears. Jake follows close behind, disappearing into the darkness beyond the broken pane. I'm left standing in the middle of the destroyed living room, a scene of utter devastation. Tremors rack my body from head to foot, the adrenaline rush giving way to aftershocks of terror. The poker clatters to the floor from my numb grip. The metallic scent of blood hangs heavy in the air, mingling with the acrid smell of fear and the lingering traces of smoke from the extinguished fireplace. It's a heady, nauseating combination that threatens to overwhelm my senses. Fog descends over my mind as shock sets in, leaving me numb and disoriented. What do I do now? Where is Jake? Why hasn't he come back? The questions swirl through my thoughts, each one more frantic than the last. Oh God, what if the feral kills him? Panic rises in my throat, threatening to choke me with its icy grip. I force myself to move, stumbling through the debris-strewn room, my bare feet crunching on shattered glass and splintered wood. My foot catches on something, and I look down to see Jake's CB radio lying on the floor, its antenna bent at an awkward angle. With shaking hands, I pick it up, cradling it like a lifeline. Tears stream down my face as I sob into the microphone, my voice cracking with desperation as I pray that someone, anyone, will hear my desperate plea for help. Just then, a figure staggers through the front door, and my heart leaps into my throat. It's Jake, back in his human form, but the relief I feel is short-lived. He's covered in blood, his skin torn and bruised. "Maya," he calls out, his voice weak and strained, barely above a whisper before he crashes to the floor. I rush over to Jake, tears streaming down my face as terror grips me. He's bruised, bloodied, and too still. "Jake!" I cry out, my voice cracking with anguish as I kneel beside him. He moans softly, his eyes fluttering open, and relief makes my breath stutter. He reaches out for me, his fingers grasping weakly at the air. I take his hand in mine, feeling the warmth of his skin against my own. Blood oozes from open wounds. He's a mess of cuts, bruises, and deep gashes. "I'm sorry," he whispers, his voice strained and laced with regret. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." He's lying broken and bloody and apologizing to me? He fought a feral wolf who would have snapped me in half without a second thought. He put himself in harm's way to protect me. "No, Jake," I reply, my voice trembling. "You have nothing to apologize for." He shakes his head, a pained expression etched onto his features. "You don't understand. Everything is my fault. I felt your confusion when you woke up. I flooded the bond with my desire. You acted on my desire, not your own." We're talking about two different things. Dread takes up residence in my gut, churning my already jangled nerves. "Jake, no." I start to protest, but he cuts me off, his words carrying the weight of finality. "I'll shut down the bond," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll give you back your autonomy." The sound of police sirens pierce the air, growing louder as they approach our location. "Someone must have heard my message on the CB," I murmur, relief flooding through me at the prospect of help arriving. Jake nods, a sad smile playing on his lips as he regards me with those soulful eyes. "Zine and Mitch will keep you safer than I'll ever be able to," he says, his voice heavy with resignation. A strange sensation settles in my chest, a coldness that spreads through my veins with icy tendrils. I clutch at my chest, confusion and fear mingling together in a heady cocktail of emotion. "Something's wrong," I manage to choke out, my voice trembling. My life is returning to shades of gray instead of the bright multicolor of the past few days. Jake's gaze meets mine, and the intensity of his eyes is unbearable. It's the look of defeat from a man who has lost everything he holds dear. "I know you're unsure about the bond. I should have listened to you instead of pushing it on you. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry." The finality of his statement leaves me clutching my chest and gasping for air. My mouth works, but no words come out. My chest is cold and dark, and I'm sinking into an abyss. The sound of screeching tires and gravel crunching underfoot signals the arrival of Mitch and Zane. They burst through the front door, their eyes widening at the scene of destruction before them. Shattered glass crunches beneath their boots, and the acrid scent of smoke and spilled blood hangs heavy in the air as they dash over to us and kneel next to Jake. "I'm okay," Jake assures them, his voice strained and laced with pain, but even as he speaks those words, I can see the truth written across his face. He's far from okay. His hand comes over the largest gash and clenches. Blood drips from between his fingers. I was too exhausted to stop the feral. He was too fast. I lost him crossing the Iron Jaw border. Jake rasps. "You were attacked by a feral?" Mitch's face is a mask of determination, lines of worry etched across his forehead. He grips Jake's shoulder. "Jake, listen to me. The feral's saliva is acidic. If we don't get you to Ilara soon, it'll dissolve your blood. We're running out of time." The words slam into me. Acid? Dissolving his blood? God, no. This can't be happening. But it is. Jake's wounds are all too real, his injuries all too vivid. My world tilts and sways, darkening at the edges. Jake saved me. He protected me. Now he's the one who might die because of it. The thought is a jagged shard of ice slicing through me. Jake's gaze is unwavering as a hard coldness settles in my chest. "Please take Maya back to the wolf's bite. If that would be okay with Cindy, I can no longer protect Maya. I'm not the mate she deserves." I put a trembling hand over my mouth, willing the bile back down. This is all kinds of wrong. He's in so much pain, and still he's thinking of me? Mitch and Zane work with frantic efficiency to put Jake in the back of the cruiser, his face ghostly pale, contorted in pain. The sound of their boots crunching against the gravel is muffled by the roaring in my ears. My heart shatters, piece by irreparable piece. This is wrong, so wrong, and I don't know how to make it right. Mitch turns to me, his eyes hard but not unkind. "We'll get him to Ilara. She can help him. But we need to move fast." His words are like a lifeline, but their gravity pulls me down further. "You'll be safe enough, for now, with the feral having escaped over the Packland border. I'll come back to take you to Cindy soon." Numbly I nod, my voice barely a whisper. "Please just make sure Jake will be okay, and tell me how he is." Mitch's gaze softens just a fraction, a promise etched in his frown. Even when it looks like it won't, fate has a way of making things work out. "Please hurry," I manage, my throat tight, as I see Jake's face twist in agony once more. Mitch slides into the driver's seat, and with a final glance back at me, they vanish into the night, the cruiser's red taillights swallowed by the darkness. I hope wherever this Ilara is, she's not far. The world blurs and grays bleed together in a kaleidoscope of pain and heartache. The sounds of the outside world fade into a dull roar, drowned out by the deafening silence that echoes in my chest. The bond was inside me all along, shimmering and glowing with warmth, and now there's nothing but ash inside me. And cold, alone, just the way I always was. Just the way I always will be. This time, it's all my fault. I wake to the sound of someone knocking on the door. the insistent rapping pulling me from the depths of a restless sleep. Bright sunshine streams through the window, its cheerful rays mocking the gloom that has settled over my heart. That isn't fair. The day should be as gloomy as the storm raging within me, the clouds mirroring the darkness that has enveloped my soul. The knocking grows more insistent. Please, God, let this be a dream. Maya? Cindy's voice calls from the other side of the door, laced with concern. Are you awake? God isn't kind enough to let me sleep all day, I mutter. With a groan, I roll out of bed, my limbs heavy as I make my way to the door. I'm back at the Wolf's Bite, and it's only fair that I answer the hotel's owner when the only thing I want to do is roll over and go back to sleep, to escape into the bliss that oblivion promises. I open the door, and Cindy perks up, a smile spreading across her face. You're awake, she says, brows lifting. I suppose she should be surprised. I've been holed up in here for days, unwilling to face anyone or anything. After Mitch brought me here and told me Jake was going to be okay, I fell into bed and have only gotten out for the bathroom and to pace my room before I fall into bed again. My gaze flickers to the silver cover over the meal she brought me last night on the carpet outside my door, cold and untouched. I haven't had the appetite to eat either, the thought of food turning my stomach. Cindy frowns as she looks me up and down, taking in my disheveled appearance. I'm worried about you, Maya. You look thin. You haven't been eating or showering or looking after yourself at all, for that matter. I glance down at the clothes I've worn for 3 days, the fabric rumpled and stained. She's right. I'm a mess. Has it really been 3 days? I ask, my voice hoarse from disuse. Cindy nods sadly, her eyes filled with a mixture of pity and understanding. 3 days since Jake was saved. 3 days since I sagged into bed, relief making everything in my body turn to dust. It doesn't seem like 3 days, might as well have been 3 years. In fact, it's all been a blur of pain and sadness, a haze of anguish that has consumed my every waking moment. Everything has been like a bad dream, a nightmare from which I can't seem to wake. I think Jake has come by, leaching sadness and regret, but I was too out of it to take much in. In fact, now that I think about it, I've had many visitors, their faces and voices blending together in a cacophony of concern that I've been too numb to acknowledge. I'm sorry, I tell Cindy, the words feeling inadequate and hollow. I'm sorry for a lot of things. Sorry for the pain I've caused. Sorry for the burden I've become. Cindy's expression softens, and she reaches out to squeeze my hand, her touch warm and comforting. Go and take a shower, and then, when you're feeling refreshed, come to the kitchen for some good old girl time. You need it. I nod, grateful for something to do, something to break the unending cycle of despair that has consumed me. I need to feel something more than the dead blankness inside me, coupled with the horror of the feral attack and the sight of Jake's blood, his body bruised and battered. Because of me. I think of the dark circles under his eyes, the ashen cast to his face, of the fact he was awake whenever I woke and I never, ever asked if he'd rested. I realize now he had taken no rest. He was awake for days in an attempt to protect me. I rake my hand down my face, as if the gesture can somehow release the memory that has seared itself into my mind, a brand that will never fade. I'll be down shortly, I tell Cindy, my voice barely above a whisper. I know I won't be much company, but I also know that Cindy is only trying to help. Cindy smiles, a glimmer of hope in her eyes I don't like seeing there, and leaves me to my own devices. I don't have hope for myself. It's wrong to expect it from others. I take a shower on autopilot, my movements mechanical and detached as the water cascades over my body, washing away the grime but doing little to cleanse the stain on my soul. As I step out of the shower and towel off, my mind wanders to the future that awaits me. I will have to leave Willowbrook within the next couple of days to start my new job, move into my new apartment. I imagine working in a marketing management role, overseeing huge budgets and a staff of people, my days consumed by meetings and reports and the never-ending pursuit of success. I imagine myself at my best, wearing my finest suit, working from dawn until dusk, because that's what it takes to climb the corporate ladder. I imagine myself doing that for the next 50 years, a bleak and joyless existence punctuated only by the occasional promotion or raise. The future I was once excited about now fills me with dread, a sense of emptiness and purposelessness that settles like a weight in the pit of my stomach. Then, another future superimposes itself over the first, a vision so vivid and vibrant that it takes my breath away. I see myself laughing and smiling, surrounded by people who care for me, who love me unconditionally. I see children, my children, their faces alight with joy, their laughter like music to my ears. I see a cabin in the forest, a sanctuary of warmth and peace, and Jake, his arm around me, his eyes shining with a love so pure and profound it's almost too over. It's a future I never imagined for myself, a life so full of color and warmth and happiness that it seems almost too good to be true. It's a future that was within my grasp, a future that could have been mine if only I had been brave enough to reach out and take it. But then, in an instant, it's all destroyed, shattered like a mirror by the image of a massive feral wolf, its jaws snapping and its claws tearing into flesh. Blood, so much blood, and death, and the sound of my own screams echoing in my ears until I can barely take a breath. As I dress, I fight the sickness that has risen in my stomach. The visions, the memories, they're too much, too vivid, too real. I can't escape them, no matter how hard I try. That future, the one filled with laughter, love, and warmth, seems too good to be true, especially for someone as emotionally damaged as me. The scars of my past run deep, etched into my very being, and I can't help but feel that I'm undeserving of such happiness, such joy. Jake knew it too. That's why he cut off the bond, severing the connection that had begun to blossom between us. He must have realized that he'd never have a full life with me, that my emotional baggage would always hold him back. I'm so holed up in the past, so consumed by the ghosts of my own failures and shortcomings, that I don't think I'll ever climb free, ever be able to embrace the future that might have been ours. It's funny how I feel so adrift now, so lost and untethered. I realize now I'd been feeling the bond since he shifted that first time, the subtle tug of Jake's emotions and thoughts intertwining with my own, but I didn't recognize it for what it was. At first I was shocked, surprised, and even alarmed by the strange sensations that had coursed through me, but now, with the bond gone, I realized just how much I miss it, how much I'd come to rely on that connection, that sense of belonging, the warmth, the comfort, the love. You never recognize what you never knew, but now that I do, it's lost to me forever. It's for the best, Maya. I'll say it as often as I can. Soon I'll start to believe it. Probably, maybe, hopefully. At least Jake can live his life free from the burden of my broken soul, and I can get on with mine, as gray as it will be. I find myself in the kitchen, with no clear memory of how I got there. I look down at myself to see I'm dressed in clothes I didn't recall putting on. I've blurred things out again, my mind drifting in a haze. As I step into the cozy room, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the warm scent of baked goods wafting through the air, I'm jolted back to reality by the sight of Patty, Cindy, Sally, Sarah, and Aurea gathered around the table. Conversation stops, and concern etches onto their faces as they take in my appearance. The table is spread with plates of food, scones, cakes, and steaming dishes of savory fare. Cups of coffee sit untouched, wisps of steam curling up from their surface. The plates in front of them are bare, and there's a spare empty seat waiting for me. They've done all of this, taken the time and effort to prepare this feast, and have been waiting patiently for me to join them. As I stare at their faces, the same faces that have checked in on me over the last 3 days, offering comfort and support that I've repeatedly pushed away, I feel a sudden rush of shame and gratitude. These women, who barely know me, have shown me more kindness and compassion than I've ever known, and I've repaid them by burying myself in the depths of my own misery. "I'm sorry," I blurt out, my voice cracking with emotion. "I'm sorry for the way I've treated you all. I didn't mean to send you away when you came to visit. I'm just not used to people worrying about me." Tears blur my vision, hot and stinging, and I blink them away, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. But then Patty, Jake's mother, stands and comes to me, enveloping me in a warm, motherly hug. I stiffen in her arms, taken aback by the sudden display of affection, but as she holds me close, I feel something inside me begin to crack, to crumble. This is what it might be like, I realize, to be hugged by my own mother, to feel the unconditional love and acceptance of a parent. And in that moment, I feel so lonely, so starved for human connection, I can't help but lean into her embrace, soaking up the comfort she offers. "It's okay to accept what support people offer," Patty murmurs, her voice soft and soothing. "It's okay to need people when you're in need. That way you can fill your well and give it back when it's your turn to give out comfort to them. It's the way Pack works." Her words wash over me, and I feel the truth and comfort emanating from her, seeping into my bones and beginning to thaw the icy numbness that has gripped me. Slowly, hesitantly, I put my arms around her waist and let her hug me. Let myself be held and supported in a way I've never allowed before. "I'm sorry about Jake," I whisper, my voice muffled against her shoulder. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the mate he needs." Patty releases me, and I see tears glistening in her eyes, even as she smiles at me with a warmth that radiates from her very being. She guides me to the table. "Come and sit. Eat. I've made lasagna again since you didn't get to eat it when I made it for you before." The day the feral attacked? I force the thought from my mind, concentrating on the beautiful spread on the table. They've gone to such effort for me. It feels foreign, this sense of being welcomed and valued, but it's also so nice. A stupid amount of gratitude wells up and threatens to spill more tears. As I sink into the chair, Sally fills my plate with a generous portion of the steaming pasta dish, the rich aroma of tomatoes and herbs making my mouth water. Sarah places a cup of coffee in front of me, the steam curling up and caressing my face with its warmth. I look around the table at the faces of these women who have shown me such kindness and care. A sense of belonging, of acceptance that I've never experienced before ripples through me. I realize this is what it's like to have friends, to be part of a community who looks out for one another, who supports and uplifts each other through the darkest of times. As I sit at the table, surrounded by the warmth and camaraderie of these women, a small voice in the back of my mind whispers that this is what I'll be missing out on when I leave for San Francisco. The realization hits me like a punch to the gut, and I know deep down that the voice is right. There's a kinship here, a sense of belonging that I've never experienced before, and I wonder if it's because we all share the same wolf shifter blood, even if some of us have more than others. Patty, Sally, and Cindy are full wolf shifters, and their connection to the pack and to each other would run deep and strong. Aria and Sarah, on the other hand, are human mates with watered-down blood. But even they seem to fit seamlessly into this tight-knit group, their love and loyalty just as fierce and unwavering. I wonder if it's possible for me to fit in just as well, just like the book said. "What do you know about fated mates?" Sarah asks, her voice soft and curious. I take a deep breath, my mind flashing back to the book Jake and I brought back from the library. I wonder where it's gotten to. Hopefully, it wasn't trashed in the fight. It was so old it would be priceless. I hope all of that knowledge isn't lost. I read that there's a special bond between a wolf shifter and the person fate has chosen for them. It grows slowly when a wolf shifter meets their human fated, I say, remembering the texts that I did read. There was so much left that I'd yet to finish. The memory of the erotic image from the book floods my mind, and I duck my head, feeling the heat of a blush creeping up my cheeks. The faces of the couple in the illustration were pure ecstasy, their bodies intertwined in a dance of passion and love. And now I understand why. It's not just physical, but a merging of minds and souls, a connection that transcends the boundaries of the flesh. A bond, soul connected, a precious gift I no longer have. Arya nods, her eyes shining with a wisdom that belies her years. It's much more than that. Mates are the other part of your soul. The connection is a special bond that transcends logic, but it's there and it's real. What I share with Zane is like dipping my toe into an ocean. It's that vast and all-encompassing. Sarah chimes in, her face glowing with a happiness that seems to radiate from within. Mitch is my perfect match in every way. When he first shifted into a wolf and told me I was his fated mate, I was shocked. It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. But when we fully bonded, all my doubts disappeared. There's a deep understanding between us, a certainty that fate brought us together for a reason. There's nothing to worry about, only good things to look forward to. Their words paint a picture of a love so beautiful, so pure and unconditional, that it takes my breath away. I'm happy for them, truly I am, but there's a part of me that aches with a longing I can't quite name. I didn't recognize what I felt, I admit, my voice thick with unshed tears. When Jake shifted in front of me, it scared me. Patty sisks, her brow furrowing. I'll have a word with that boy. He should have had more control. I shake my head, a rueful smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. It's okay. I was shocked, that was for sure, but when it wore off, I was more scared of the feelings he aroused in me. I'd never felt anything like them before. I didn't trust them because I've never experienced anything like it before. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what I'm about to say next. I've never shared this part of my life with anyone before, but something about these women, about the love and acceptance radiating from them, makes me want to open up, to let them see the broken pieces of my soul. I clench my fists in my lap. My mother was an alcoholic. She never looked after me, never showed me the love and care a child needs. And my dad, he was a traveling salesman. He'd be gone for weeks at a time, and then one day, he just didn't come back. I paused, swallowing past the lump in my throat. I lived on campus when I went to university, and then I bought a small, run-down house with an inheritance from a grandmother I never knew. I worked hard to pay it off, and then I got my job, and I worked even harder. I never had friends because no one wanted to know the girl who didn't wash properly or wore clothes that were either dirty or too small. There was always something about me that kept people away, and I got used to it. Patty makes a distressed sound, and her hand covers mine, her touch warm and comforting. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that, she says, her voice thick with emotion. I shrug, trying to play it off as if it doesn't matter, as if the loneliness and isolation haven't left scars on my heart that may never fully heal. I didn't know any different. I threw myself into school, into books, and then into my job. It kept the loneliness at bay. Sally leans forward, her eyes searching mine. Do you want the bond with Jake, hun? She asks, her voice gentle but probing. I close my eyes, letting myself remember the way it felt to be connected to Jake, to feel his love and desire flowing through me like a warm golden light. It was a feeling of completeness, of wholeness, that I never knew I was missing until I experienced it for myself. Jake is everything I could ever want in a partner. Kind, gentle, thoughtful, and loving. He anticipated my every need, always making sure I was okay, so that I felt loved and cherished. And now, as I sift through the emotions and thoughts swirling through me, I realize that the strange feeling that's been growing in my chest is love. Love for Jake, pure and simple. But then I recall the devastation of his house, the way the feral tracked me there and put him in danger. Jake was hurt because of me, and that's not fair. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to him because of me. Jake could have died trying to protect me. Me being here isn't safe for him. Cindy shakes her head, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Wolf shifter mates will do anything to protect their mate, even break a bond when it's the very thing they exist for, no matter what that means. If you complete the bond, you'll understand the lengths you go to for your bonded mate. Her gaze searches mine, imploring me to understand. I look at her, wondering if it could be true, that Jake could want me so much, he'd be willing to break something he's wanted his whole life, something that is in the structure of his core being as a shifter. Just then, the sound of vehicles pulling up to the front of the hotel catches my attention. I hear the engines cut off, and I wonder who it could be. Patty pats my hand, a glint in her eye. "That'll be the boys with your car," she says, her voice filled with a warmth that wraps around me like a hug. My brow tightens in confusion. What boys? And isn't my car in the bottom of a ditch? I step through the front foyer and into the bright sunshine, squinting against the glare as my eyes adjust, and there, parked in front of the hotel, is my car, my fixed and gleaming, clean car. Brand new tires have replaced the shredded ones, and a new radiator sits under the hood, which has been expertly bent back into shape. The roof, once peeled back by the feral's claws, is now rounded and smooth, the metal skin seamless and unbroken. It's running, it's all fixed, restored to its former glory after the accident that nearly claimed my life. I'm stunned, surprised by the sight of it. The last time I saw my car, it looked unfixable, a twisted hunk of metal that seemed destined for the scrapyard. But here it is, a phoenix risen from the ashes, a testament to the hard work and determination of someone who clearly cares for me. Ed, Jake's dad, emerges from the driver's side, a proud smile on his face as he takes in my awestruck expression. But before I can say a word, the rumble of another engine catches my attention, and Jake's truck peels down the driveway, coming to a stop next to my car. My heart tumbles in my chest as Jake steps out. He looks tired, the shadows under his eyes a little darker than usual, but he still looks oh so good. The sun glints off his dark hair, casting highlights of chestnut and gold, and his broad shoulders and biceps punch out the thin fabric of his t-shirt in a way that makes my mouth go dry. His jeans hug his muscular thighs like they were made for him, and when his gaze meets mine, his light blue eyes glow for a second, as his wolf rises to the surface. I miss him. I miss him so much that it's like a physical ache, a constant throb in my chest that refuses to subside. I even miss his wolf, the primal power and grace that radiates from his other form. Seeing him now, so close yet so far away, only serves to deepen the emptiness inside me, the cold, dark void where our bond once resided. He looks as though he suffered more than I have, his face drawn and his shoulders slumped, as if the weight of the world rests upon them. Ed gives me a sad smile and clasps my shoulder as he walks past, offering a silent gesture of comfort and support. Patty emerges from the hotel, her eyes shining with unshed tears as she tells us, "I'm always here for you both." Then, with a nod from Ed, the girls file back inside, leaving Jake and me alone in the bright afternoon sunshine. His gaze is intense, probing, and I'm acutely aware of a faint stirring of uncertainty, a fluttering in the pit of my stomach. "How were you able to fix my car?" I ask. Jake shuffles his feet, his nervousness palpable as he fights the urge to close the distance between us. I can see the struggle written across his face, the tension in his jaw as he clenches his teeth, and I have to fight the overwhelming urge to fling myself into his arms, to bury myself in his body, his scent, his very essence. I didn't do it all on my own, and it's not perfect. I didn't do the paintwork, and it still has scratches, but it will get you to where you need to go, he says. I'm gobsmacked, my mind reeling at the thought of him putting in so much effort, so much time and energy to restore my car to working condition. How were you able to fix it in 3 days? I ask, my voice tinged with awe and disbelief. John Burke, the guy I inherited the shop from, came to help, Jake explains. And my dad helped too. A pang of guilt twists in my gut as I remember the destruction of his house, the chaos and violence that nearly claimed his life. But your house was destroyed, and yet he still worked on my car. Jake shrugs, his expression one of quiet resignation. Fixing your car was more important, because it was for you, Maya, and I know you have a life you need to get to. My stomach lurches, and I feel a wave of nausea wash over me. He really does want me to go, to leave Willowbrook and all the pain and heartache behind. But then my gaze falls on the suitcases strapped into the back of his truck. What are those for? Jake's eyes swim with a heartbreak so profound that it sets fire to my heart. They're my cases. If you don't want to live in Willowbrook, then I'm coming wherever you are, if you'll have me, that is. I'm shocked, rendered speechless by his declaration. Why are you doing this now? You don't want me. You made that clear when you shut down the bond. Jake shakes his head, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. It was wrong of me to shut off the bond. I shouldn't have done it. I was only trying to protect you, but it's killed me to see you like this for the past 3 days. It wasn't exactly the wrong thing to do, I counter, my heart aching with the weight of my own words. I'm putting you in danger simply by being your mate. But Jake's response is a radiant smile that lights up his entire face, rendering him devastatingly handsome. What are you smiling about? I ask. His gaze meets mine, and the love and adoration shining in his eyes is almost too much to bear. Because you called me your mate. You've never said that before. My breath stutters because that's exactly what I did. The word fell off my tongue so naturally I didn't even notice. A flush of warmth goes through me. It takes a moment to recognize what the emotion is before I can name it. Happiness. What I'm feeling is happiness. Yet the place inside me where the bond once resided still feels empty, a hollow void that aches to be filled. The warmth I'm experiencing is all me, nothing more. I'm still putting you at risk. Look what happened to your house because of me. Jake shakes his head, his expression one of fierce determination. It didn't happen because of you. It happened because of the feral who came into our house to attack you. It wasn't your fault, and if I made you feel that it was, then that's on me, not you. It's my honor to protect you. His words are like a balm to my wounded soul, soothing the guilt and self-doubt that have plagued me for so long. I want you desperately, he continues, his voice thick with emotion. I've always wanted you, even when I didn't know you. And now that I do know you, it's so much better than I could ever have imagined. I want you, and only you. He pauses, his gaze intense and unwavering. I'm keeping the bond tamped because I want you to make a choice and not feel like the bond is coercing you. But I love you so deeply. There is no way I want to give up that love. That explains why I don't feel him. A flicker of doubt crosses my mind, and I can't help but voice the fear that has been gnawing at me since the moment I realized the depth of his feelings. What if you get sick of me and all of my hang-ups? What if you get sick of... Sick of what, Maya? Jake asks. My old insecurities well inside me like the well-run scripts they are. When your own parents don't want you, it's a big mountain to climb. I swallow around a thick lump in my throat because I have to know, have to hear him say it. What if you get sick of... me? But Jake's response is immediate and unwavering. There is nothing in you that could disappoint, nothing that I don't want. Our bond only confirms what I already know. You are the only person for me, the only person I want to spend a lifetime getting to know. It doesn't matter where we live, only that we have a lifetime together. I place my hand over my chest, searching for the connection that has become so vital to my existence, but all I feel is an echoing emptiness. I can't tell if you're speaking the truth or not, I say, my voice tinged with frustration. Because I can't feel you. Jake nods, his expression one of understanding. I'll keep my side of the bond closed. I want you desperately, but I want you to know that whatever you choose with a clear head. As his words wash over me, I find myself thinking about the bond, the connection that has become so ingrained in my very being in such a short span of time. Without it, I have nothing to hold on to, nothing to center myself with. That's the way I've always been, adrift and utterly alone, until I met Jake. Everything changed then, and suddenly I had a purpose, a reason for existing beyond the monotony of my daily routine. There is nothing to go back to, I realize with a start. Now, I see my previous life for what it truly was, not freedom, but loneliness, thrust upon me by uncaring people. And now, I have the most caring of them all, laying themselves on the line for me, telling me they'll always be there, for no other reason than simply because I exist. If that's not love, I don't know what is. A wave of longing washes over me, a desperate need to feel Jake's presence, his love, blasting through me like a beacon in the darkness. I want to feel him inside me every day, to bask in the warmth of his affection and know that I deserve it, that we both deserve it. With trembling legs and vision hazed by tears, I step down the front steps, drawn to him by an invisible tether. He looks so hopeful, so lost, so handsome, that it makes my heart ache. I want everything for you, and I want everything for myself. I want to feel you inside me. Open the bond, Jake, please. In an instant, he gathers me in his arms, holding me close, as if he's afraid I'll disappear if he lets go. I've missed you so badly. I'll love you forever if you'll let me. I nod, unable to find the words to express the depth of my feelings. I wouldn't have it any other way, I manage, before our lips meet in a kiss that sets my soul ablaze. As our mouths move together, a blossom of light and color blooms in my chest, spreading warmth and joy through every fiber of my being. And then, like a dam bursting, Jake is there, sinking through every pore in my body, a radiant presence that fills the empty spaces within me with light and love, and everything I never knew I wanted. His love showers through me, a torrent of pure emotion that leaves me breathless and dizzy with its intensity. I wonder how I ever missed feeling that in the bond, because it was always there, a constant undercurrent waiting to be acknowledged, waiting for me to open my heart and let it in. But now I do, and it's the most beautiful, exhilarating feeling ever. Jake pulls back, his eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. Tell me where you want to go. I'll take you there. The bond surges with his conviction, his unwavering determination to give me everything I've ever wanted and more, and I realize, with a clarity that leaves me breathless, how much I've missed this connection, missed feeling him right there inside me. Right now, I want to go to my room down the corridor, then I want to stay here in Willowbrook for the rest of my life, with you. I send him a wave of my desire, my need for him, and watch as his pupils expand with want. What about your job? He asks, his voice hoarse. I shake my head, marveling at his strength, his ability to put my needs before his own. I only thought I wanted it, but now I know the difference between real want and just something to fill my empty life. I don't want an empty life anymore, Jake. I want a life filled with everything I never had. Real friends, a mate, love, family. I cup his face in my hands, my thumbs tracing the sharp lines of his cheekbones as I gaze into his eyes, those twin pools of molten blue that have always seen straight into my soul. I choose you, I whisper, my heart swelling with a love so pure, so all-encompassing that it threatens to consume me entirely. Always and forever, I choose you. I sit at the kitchen table, carefully piecing together the ancient library books that were damaged when Jake fought the feral. The pages are delicate, their edges frayed and torn, but I handle them with the utmost care, determined to restore them to their former glory. I want to take them back to Carol in the best condition I can, despite hating that these ancient books were damaged at all. Across the room, Patty busies herself in the kitchen, the rich aroma of baking apples and cinnamon filling the air. The scent is warm and comforting, a reminder of the love and care that goes into every dish she creates. Outside, the sound of hammering and sawing echoes through the open window as Ethan, Jake's brother Ed, Mitch, Zane, and Jake himself work to repair the broken window and the mess left behind by the feral's attack. Ethan is similar in looks to Jake, with the same light blue, preternatural eyes and tall, muscular frame. But where Jake exudes a quiet confidence, Ethan has a more serious demeanor, his brow furrowed in concentration as he works. Despite his serious nature, Ethan welcomed me into the family as soon as Jake introduced us. And now I have a brand new brother, someone who has my back no matter what. The thought fills me with a warmth that spreads through my chest, chasing away the lingering chill of loneliness that once plagued me. Sarah and Arya are by my side, helping me sort through the debris and clean up the mess inside the house. It's a task made easier by their presence, their laughter and easy camaraderie, a balm to my soul. I can barely believe I have friends. It's almost surreal, a fiction book made true, but then I realize this is real life, my life. Everything I've always wanted, friends who truly like me, who don't see my childhood as a disability or a burden, but as a part of what makes me who I am. And Jake's parents, Ed and Patty, are loving and kind, everything my own parents never were. Carol even offered me a job at the library, something I'm genuinely excited about. I wanted to start right away, but she shook her head and told me 2 weeks. She remembers what it was like to find her faded, and there's no way my mind would be on books much before that time. She was right. I sent my mother an email to tell her why I didn't make it to San Francisco, but for the first time in my life, I don't care that I haven't heard anything back. Hearing nothing would normally send me into a downward spiral, causing me to lose myself in hours of work to numb the pain. But not this time. She chose not to want to know me, and that's on her. I have so much more here now. My life is so full, so rich, with love and acceptance, that her rejection barely registers as more than a dull ache. The bond thrums with pride, a warm, comforting presence that wraps around me like an embrace. I catch Jake's eye as he seals the window, his gaze filled with a love and adoration that makes my pulse race. He knows exactly how far I've come in the week since I accepted the bond, since I opened my heart and let him in. The first 5 days, we didn't surface from my room at the Wolf's Bite. I'm thankful that Cindy didn't push us out, knowing what we were doing in her room. Exploring the depths of our connection, reveling in the intensity of our newfound bond. It was a whirlwind of passion and discovery, a merging of souls that left me breathless and aching for more. Cindy is bubbly and happy, but I can sense an undercurrent of loneliness within her, a yearning for the kind of connection that Jake and I share. I want that for her too, for her to find her own mate and experience the joy and completeness that comes with the soul bond. The connection I share with Jake is steadfast and absolute. I know how much he loves me, and he knows the depths of my love for him in return. Every day I wake up and thank fate for gifting me with this bond, this unbreakable tether that binds our souls together. I wouldn't have it any other way. I bring my attention back to the moment, to the background chatter and laughter that fills the kitchen as everyone pitches in to help us set things back in order. "Sarah," I call out, catching her attention. "Did they ever catch the feral who attacked me, the one that got away?" She shakes her head, her expression somber. "No, they haven't. But Mitch found another broken ward between Longtooth and Ironjaw Packlands. There's a connection there that he's trying to get to the bottom of, but every lead has gone cold. Even Ilara doesn't have any news for us." A heavy silence falls over the room as her words sink in. We're all on edge, wondering when the next attack will be, when the next threat will rear its ugly head. Our mates know what they're doing, and we trust them to keep us safe. But what about anyone new who might come in, who doesn't have the protection of the pack? The conversation turns to speculation and concern, with Arya, Sarah, Patty, and I weighing in with our thoughts and fears. It's a sobering reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows, of the darkness that exists, even in this world of magic and wonder. Pushing those thoughts aside, I reach for one of the loose pages torn from the books and begin flipping through the volumes, searching for the missing page's rightful place. I go through a few, carefully inspecting each one, until I pick up the book on mate bonds. As I flip through its pages, a torn fragment catches my eye, and I set about carefully repairing the damage, using a thin layer of glue to affix the page back into its proper place. Once I've finished, I carefully set the book aside and prop it open, allowing the glue to dry and the pages to settle back into their rightful position. Sarah's sharp intake of breath cuts through the comfortable conversation. Her eyes widen and she leans forward, carefully turning the ancient book so that it faces her fully. "I have that symbol," she breathes, her voice tinged with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "On a charm on my bracelet." She holds up her wrist, the delicate silver chain glinting in the soft light, and points to one of the charms dangling from it. On it is the symbol clearly etched. "I found it at a thrift store," she continues, her eyes shining with excitement. "I was drawn to it, and whenever I wear it, I feel warm and protected." I'm shocked and surprised to see that it's the same rune symbol as the one on my earrings, and Arya's lucky stone. I grab the book and flip through its pages, my heart pounding in my chest. And there, on a well-worn page, is a small drawing of the rune symbol that Jake and I have been searching for. We were looking in the wrong books all this time. "Boys," I call out, my voice carrying over the din of their work. "Sarah found information about the rune." In an instant, they're gathered around me, their faces etched with curiosity and anticipation. I take a deep breath, steadying myself, and begin to read the passage aloud. The symbol is a fated mate symbol that helps those the goddess of wolf-shifters deems worthy of finding their mate. It guides them to find their soul-bonded mate. It's a blessing of the highest order. When one finds the symbol, it's a sign that they will be on the path to meet their fated. As the words leave my lips, I sink back into my chair, stunned by the revelation, my mind racing with the implications. Wordlessly, I show Sarah my earrings, the rune symbol glinting in the soft light. "I've always felt safe and protected wearing them, too." Arya nods, her expression one of wonder. "That's what I felt when I found my lucky stone. We all have the same symbol in one form or another." "Can I see your bracelet, please?" Mitch asks. Sarah hands him her bracelet, and his expression grows grave as he studies the charm. "I never saw the symbol." Zane claps his hand on Mitch's shoulder. "Don't beat yourself up. Now we know." Mitch's burning gaze falls on his mate. Whatever Sarah feels makes her get up and wind her arms around Mitch. "And now we know. We can do something about it." I thumb my earrings and look up at Jake, my heart swelling with gratitude that the symbol led me to find my mate, my other half. Our gazes lock, and for a moment, the world falls away. But as I lose myself in the depths of his eyes, a thought occurs to me, a question that sends a chill down my spine. If the symbol is lucky, if it is there to bring fated mates together, then why do feral wolves have the same symbol tattooed on them? The room falls silent, the weight of my question pressing down on us. A growl rumbles from Mitch's chest. Ed and Patty exchange a worried glance, their hands clasped tightly together, as if drawing strength from each other's touch. "I don't know, Maya, but I intend to find out." Mitch's eyes glow with his wolf as his vow ripples through me. Jake draws me against his chest, and I listen to his heart beating steady in his chest. "And I'll keep you safe, no matter where you are. All of us will watch over you, your mates, our families, and our pack. You're too important, too precious for anything to happen to," Zane says. I look around at the faces of my newfound family, at their expressions of determination, and I know that we'll face this challenge together, united by the bonds of love and the pack that is my family. The future may be uncertain, but one thing is clear: I have found my mate. I have my reason to live, I am home, and I am loved, no matter what the future will bring.
Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed the story, hit subscribe so you never miss a new tale. Your support means the world. See you in the next chapter.